Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce I have teamed up with First Form Nutrition. Andy Frisella, the owner, reached out to me during Hurricane Helene when I was in North Carolina and offered his assistance and to bring awareness. And now I am teamed up with them on their supplements. And there's some really good stuff like this peanut butter and jelly protein bar. This is a favorite of mine. These meat sticks, I like these because I can throw this in my backpack when I'm going out and doing missions or just in my truck. Protein powders are amazing, like this one, the clear. You can just throw it in your water bottle, shake it up, it's good to go. But what I really like about First Form Nutrition is the clean ingredients. It's not full of a bunch of junk, not a bunch of artificial stuff, soy-free. Protein powders are clean, the energy drinks are clean, really good nutrition stuff, creatines, all kinds of good stuff out there. So go check it out. We're gonna have a link for you below and appreciate the support. I want to show you my new favorite supplement. It is magnesium, zinc, and vitamin C all in one. These ingredients are very, very clean. It's in a glass jar too. It's not a plastic bottle. I've been using this for about 3 weeks now, and I really like it. I do it about 3 times a day, but this is going to be going with me on missions when I go travel. That way I can stay healthy, avoid all the colds and flus and all the nasty things going on in airplanes and airports. But check it out. I got 2 codes for you. I got Thick 38 Broker and Howard 20. You'll save 20% on your next purchase. Thank you. Okay, Charlie, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, this is exciting for me. I've been wanting to do this ever since we got done with North Carolina and everything. Because I actually don't know your whole life story growing up. People would probably just assume that me and you have been best friends for like 10, 20 years and
Right.
don't actually realize we met during Hurricane Helene.
Right.
Even though we knew who each other were previously, but we never actually met in person or nothing.
Right.
So it's kind of cool how I just plugged in with you and we just started working together flawlessly. There was no like trying to figure out butt sniffing or anything like that. Like, do I trust this guy? Do I do this? It was just like instant, like I had like instant rapport with you, instant trust where I was like, I'm going to follow this guy into the mountains of North Carolina, and I trust his judgment from what I was seeing down here in Florida and what was going on up there. So I kind of just followed you. I don't want to say blindly, but I just kind of followed your lead because like I said,
well, you flew the plane, so hopefully you weren't too blind.
I trusted you, and I was like, man, this guy's awesome. Maybe it's because you were like 6 inches taller than me. I don't know.
That's it.
But I mean, what a wild turn of events everything has gone to from there. And I was like, once I got back, I wanted to start doing the show again. I was like, I got to get Charlie on here.
Yeah.
And I've had so many people ask about, like, I want to hear Charlie's story. And I want to hear it myself too. So a lot of people probably know us, or you, I should say, from when we did the Sean Ryan show together. Great episode on Sean Ryan show. Do you remember what number that was?
138.
That sounds right. Yeah, I think it was 138. But look up that one if you want to hear about the Hurricane Helene stuff. That was a really, really cool experience that we got to do. The only show I watched really on YouTube was Sean Ryan.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that we got to go in there was just amazing. But the bigger impact of that was how much good it brought to North Carolina, how much money it raised, awareness, got the story out there, which was great. So I won't be able to do as good as introduction as Sean Ryan did, but Sean did a great introduction. But from what I do know, you were, I think, Air Force for 8 years. You were a TACP, a soft TACP attached to the Ranger Regiment. We'll break that down a lot more. And then from there, you went out and did really successful in the civilian world, being like a consultant or like a CEO for building businesses, building them up, and then got to position at aerial recovery. And that's kind of where me and you, our paths crossed, and you ran an awesome ship. You run an awesome ship over there of people that do good all across the world. Everything from, I should say, that's when you introduced to me about how natural disasters and human trafficking go together. I thought that was weird at first. I was like, oh, that's 2 separate missions. That doesn't make sense. And you're like, no, the human traffickers go where the natural disasters are because it's easy to make people disappear on paper.
They go where any disaster is.
Yeah.
Anywhere where there's chaos.
Yeah. So I guess I want to hear the story about who you are, where you're born.
Okay.
Grew up from there, high school, why you joined the Air Force.
Right.
And I'll let you take it, man. I'm just going to shut
up and
here.
Cool. Well, I was actually born in San Diego. We lived out there. My dad was in the Navy back during Vietnam. Met my mom. They got married, had us kids, and we lived in San Diego till I was about 5. And then we drove an RV cross country. All of us from California to Wisconsin, and then back down to Georgia where my aunt lived. My mom and my aunt were very close, so that was the reason why we moved to Georgia. And then I did elementary and high school and college there in Georgia, and grew up playing sports. My dad and brother are both very mechanical. So I remember one time my dad came up and he's like, "Hey guys, I'll give you each $100 to take this diesel engine apart and put it back together." And my brother like ran for the toolbox, and I was like, "I'm out. I have no interest in this at all." But yeah, so I grew up playing sports, basketball, baseball, and was been tall my whole life. So basketball was a pretty natural thing. I actually liked baseball more, but I was better at basketball. So
Do you remember what age you were 6'5", 6'6"?
oh gosh,
Like,
I remember being 6 foot in about ninth grade.
wow.
And then 6'5", 6'6" as a junior.
Wow.
And so I played baseball my freshman year. I played baseball, and my sister was dating this guy who he just had all these dreams set for me. He's like, "Oh, you've got a great swing, a great arm. You could go really far. You should just give basketball up." And so I looked up to this guy. So I didn't play basketball that year, and then come around to the next year and walked into the gym from my ninth grade year to the 10th grade year. I walked into the gym, and I must have grown 3 or 4 inches that summer, because I walked into the gym and looked up at the rim and I was like, "Oh my God, the goal's right there." So I could dunk it super easy at that age. Couldn't play for shit, couldn't dribble, couldn't shoot, but I chipped my tooth on a backboard one time, right? So I could jump really good, but I couldn't play for anything. But ended up having a good high school run and got to go play in college for a year. And well, it was a 4-year scholarship, but I only ended up staying for a year. But I got to that level. I had worked my entire life to get there. Everything from going to school as a kid, I would play basketball in the driveway for 30 minutes before school. Get to school, run to the gym, play basketball in the gym before the bell rang. Anytime we got a chance to get a basketball in our hands, we would do it. And so did all that work and all those hours of practice and games and times in the driveway. And then I got to college and completely didn't take advantage of that opportunity. And I just wasn't ready. We were chasing women, drinking, making really bad decisions. And I just got to a point where I was like, I'm gonna either end up dead or in jail or I'm gonna be a loser the rest of my life. And so wasn't getting the time I thought I could get, that I deserved playing basketball. So my college season, I think I maybe scored 20 points all season. Didn't get to play that much, but yeah. So I had that revelation one Monday morning, I think, after just a stupid weekend of bad decisions, and I was like, I got to get out of here. And so went to the recruiter's office. My cousin was in the Marines, and I just remembered how much I looked up to him, growing up, because he was a big time wrestler and always in shape and always finding success. And so he had joined the Marines, and so I go into the Marine recruiter's office, and he's not there. He's like, there's nowhere to be found. I knew the Army wasn't an option, and I had been on a Navy ship, like on a tour or something, and saw how low the ceilings were. And I was like, yeah, I'm already hitting my head on too many things as it is. So the Navy was out. Never really thought about the Air Force, but he was the only recruiter in the office. And he's like, "Hey, he's not there. Yeah, come in here. He's gone." Then I was like, "Oh, all right." And so walk into this Air Force recruiter's office, and he didn't know anything. He didn't know anything about special operations at all. So I remember they had a poster on the wall, and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And it was either combat control or PJ flyer or whatever. I was like, "What's that?" And he didn't know anything about it at all. He's like, "Hey, that's really hard. You don't want to do that." And I was interested in it, right? And so ended up going in as a security forces guaranteed job, right? And I got to basic training, and I thought I was going to be some amazing dog handler and go chase down bad guys or something. That's the vision I thought it was, and got to basic training and saw all the the gate guards waving people in. I was like, oh no, this is a bad idea. And so they had a TACP recruiter coming around and giving a presentation, and I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. We live with the Army and jump out of planes and call in airstrikes. And then so went and did that little assessment thing in basic training, and then got picked up for it, and then went to Hurlburt Field for our training. That was in the summer of '95, I believe, and ended up graduating there in December of '95. And at that time, we had this program where you could if you maxed out your PT test and you had the highest grades on all the assessments, then you could volunteer for the airborne program. So you could go, because TACP support conventional forces and special operations forces, but you always go to conventional first. And so the fastest way to get out of conventional and into special operations is to go to Bragg, go to jump school, and then you're an easy couple years away from assessing and moving over to the special operations side. And so, when I left college, because I was making bad decisions and I joined the military, I thought I was on the right track. So I get in the military and I was the same dude. I was doing the same stuff. I was still drinking, still, doing stupid things, and just being a kid, and was in that program to go to Bragg and was doing great in the course. I was never smart academically in high school. I didn't really try. And then when I got in the military and everything became a competition, I realized I wasn't, just a knucklehead. I could actually remember things, and if I put forth any effort, I could be successful at anything I tried academically. And so did really good in the school and was on track to get picked up for the airborne program. And then orders came out, right? And our orders were, our first assignment, and I got Germany. And I'm like, oh, I can drink there, because I'm 19 years old. And so once again, another bad decision. Gave up the goal that I had for, a vice. And so went to Germany for 2 years, and we were attached to an aviation regiment. So we had Apaches. So we did a lot of call for fire training with Apaches and stuff in Germany. And then got a deployment to Bosnia while I was there, and spent about 5 or 6 months in between Tuzla and Sarajevo, in a little town called Olivo. And same thing, just like Afghanistan, the roads are all bombed out. It takes you 2 hours to go anywhere that would normally take you 10 minutes to get. So that was really my first look at chaos and the effects of war. A lot of burned out vehicles and buildings with huge bullet holes and tank rounds had gone through them, and just a lot of destruction. And Sarajevo was really bad. I remember driving up to Sarajevo, and from the distance, all I could see was this big white, looked like a white building, right? And we were probably, 8 to 10 miles away still. And as we got closer, it wasn't a building. It was actually a graveyard. And those were that's how many headstones there were. They were all in this one spot. And from a distance, it just looked this big, whitish gray structure. But, obviously it wasn't. But so did some time there, and then obviously back to Germany, and then got my I made E4 over there. Did really well. I was on track to have a successful time as a young airman, but still making stupid decisions and getting in trouble and just drinking way too much. And got my next assignment to Savannah, Georgia, to Fort Stewart, another conventional assignment. So now I've been in just over 2 years, and got a chance to go to airborne school out of Fort Stewart. And then we had an assessment period come up for special operations. And so I went and did that and got picked up to go to 2nd Ranger Battalion. And I think by now I'm still in E4 at that point. Like I said, had just gone to airborne school and got a chance to go to Ranger school en route from Fort Stewart to Fort Lewis. And so that was the summer of '99. So we went over to Fort Benning, got our heads shaved, and starved for turned out to be 6 months. So Ranger school is typically, I think it was 3 weeks for pre-Ranger, and then there's a couple of days off, and then Ranger school is only supposed to be like 66 days or something like that. But the excuse I make is, as a 6'6" Air Force guy, it was kind of hard to not be
A gray man?
Yeah, I couldn't be the gray man at all. So, but God, I had no idea what I was doing. You're doing raids, ambushes, and reconnaissance missions, and coming straight out of an Air Force unit that had been attached to conventional forces for 2 years. I just didn't have that experience yet. So, but yeah, so did the first phase at Fort Benning, no problem. Go on to mountains, and I just had a run of bad luck with who you're getting graded with, and then you make mistakes, and it was just a nightmare. So I recycled mountains, recycled Florida, and then graduated in January of 2000, and then we had just moved to Fort Lewis during that. While I was in school, my wife at the time had moved our family, or which we didn't have kids in yet, but she had moved our stuff up to Washington. And then, so that was January of 2000. I get up there, and I had just put on E5 while in Ranger school. And so by now I had been in for about 5 years. And so attached to the 2nd Ranger Battalion, we had about 6 guys there.
Also small.
Yeah, very small team. Back then we were manned just to the company level, which turned out to be a problem later.
Mm-hmm.
But
I didn't realize you were stationed at Lewis.
Yeah,
I was at McCord for a little bit.
Okay, yeah,
because Riz was stationed there.
Yeah.
And then when we got married, I went out there and we lived out in Lacey, Olympia.
Oh yeah.
But I would actually run by the TACP. I don't know if it's the same squadron you were at.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like a newer building, but it was there on the Army.
Yeah, they built that. I think they built that after I left.
Mm-hmm.
Because I ended up leaving in like 2003.
Okay.
I think they built a whole new compound after that.
Gotcha. I think Riz got there in 2005. Yeah,
okay.
She was there in 2005.
Yep.
She was there 2005 to 2012.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. But yeah, so had a great first year up there. Ended up, winning NCO of the year my first year as a E5.
Not just a knucklehead.
Yeah. So
and you're getting a lot of work with the Rangers there, like
yeah. So we were doing practicing a lot of airfield seizures and rotary wing bilat exercises. It was probably the first time I had met any of the combat controllers was the 2-2 guys when we went and did some airfield seizure work. I think probably down in Boise, Idaho, I think was the first one we did. But so at that point, I had just worked all this time to get through Ranger school, get attached to the Rangers, and now I had this brilliant idea that I wanted to be a pilot. And so they had this program on base where you could go every other weekend, Saturday and Sunday, all day in school and get a bachelor's degree if you had an associate's degree, and you could do it in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
I was like, all right, I'll try that. So ended up doing that and then putting my package in to be a pilot, and didn't get picked. And my commander was like, well, a lot of people don't get picked on the first try. Try again. I'm like, okay. So left the package in, and then 9/11 happens. And when you're applying to become an officer, they put a code on you. So you can't deploy, you can't get orders. I think you can't move, right?
Yeah.
And so 9/11 happens, and we were on RF1 at the time, but 375 ended up going first, and then 175, and then 275. So when it came time for our deployment, I still had my package in, and they were like, you can deploy or you can keep your package in and see what happens. And I was like, I'll deploy. Because by that time, I think I had ruled out even being eligible to be a pilot based on the numbers and everything. And they're like, well, you could be a backseater. And I'm like, all right, I don't really want to be, I'd rather deploy than be a backseater. So,
yeah.
So we deployed right after Anaconda. So we replaced 175 and ended up spending about 4 or 5 months in Afghanistan the first time. What was that? About 3 months, April to like June or July. And then
busy?
No, not really.
Oh.
Not really. I think right after, we ended up, 175 did so much damage every time they deployed. Like we would come in and, the bad guys would be like,
we don't want to fight anymore.
I don't know. So yeah, it wasn't that busy. But a lot of mountain climbing, a lot of looking for people and checkpoints and house searches and things like that. But and then Max was Tanya was pregnant with Max during that first deployment, and he was born in August. So I got back about a month before he was born, and then deployed again that December. So I was home for 4 months or so.
Oh wow!
And then deployed again. And man, I just remember sitting there in the tent, and I would get videos of my brand new son jumping in his she had something rigged to the door or something where he could jump with these straps. And I just had this feeling. I was like, I told you about this the other day. I had this weird feeling like something was going to happen where I was going to be away from them forever. I didn't know if it was going to be death or, being captured. It's still early in the war. We didn't know what the hell was going to happen, right? And I just had this really weird premonition of separation that obviously never happened from that, but you make decisions in life, and later on in my life, I made a decision to file for divorce, and then I ended up being the one that caused that separation. Again, from a lifetime full of dumb decisions, bad decisions. So, ended up going that first year. for 3 or 4 months, coming home for a few months, son born, back that December for about another 6 months or so, because that was the time when the Iraq War started, and so we were deployed with the only company out of the regiment that didn't go to Iraq. Right, so there's 3 battalions. Each battalion has 3 companies, so you have 9 total companies. One of them that I'm with is in Afghanistan. The other 8 all went to Iraq. So, it's not a great feeling when your replacement is deployed as well. We were joking. We're like, we should buy property here. Me and Kirk Newman, we joked a lot about that, about buying some riverfront property right there in Asadabad. Those were good times. That February. So I got there in December, and we would go out. So Asadabad's right up in the Konar province near the Pakistan border, up that in the eastern side of Afghanistan, and we would, anytime before we go out on a mission, we'd roll up to our little test fire area, pop off, some rounds, and then roll out the gate. And all the village kids would always come and congregate right there and wait for us to get done so they could come in and grab the brass and leave, And we always had our favorites, because some of the kids were just, brutal to the other kids, right? And so we would hold those kids back and just let the ones that we liked to come in. And I remember this one day, one of the kids that we had seen a couple times before came with his sister, and this was January. It was cold, and his sister didn't have shoes on, and so we gave the kid $20, pointed at his sister at her feet, and we're trying to say, go buy your sister some shoes. In hindsight, giving a kid a $20 US bill probably wasn't the best idea. He probably got beat up for taking it. But anyway, the next day he came, I went back out to set up an HLZ for a resupply, and in the same area where we had been, it's like on the way right to the range. And so I walk out to the HLZ, and the kid had, I assume it was him, but he had drawn a picture of me in the sand. Right? Okay. The JTAC's got the headset on and antenna and everything, but he had drawn an outline of me in the sand, I think, as a way of saying thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, that was the most gut-wrenching part of Afghanistan, was seeing the kids, how they're treated. And we had 6-year-old kids. They had to be at least, at the oldest, 6 or 7 maybe. We're in the middle of nowhere, and these kids are walking down the street with a donkey collecting firewood, and they're probably 5 miles, 8 miles from the village, and they're just out there collecting firewood. So it's just a complete different mentality and expectation that people have in different parts of the world. It's just interesting to see that.
Was human trafficking a thing during that time, or there?
Human trafficking has been a thing since the dawn of time. Yeah. But I'm sure it was. It wasn't really on my radar at that time. We heard how they treat young boys over there. I personally never saw it, but we would hear stories of it. So yeah.
So after that deployment, what was next?
So after that deployment, I got orders to come here to be an instructor at our schoolhouse.
You know what? I do remember this, because we ran into one of your former students in North Carolina.
Yeah, we did.
What was his name?
Michael Smyer.
Michael Smyer, yeah. Yep. He came up to you, he was like, Sergeant Keebaugh. Yep. He was like so happy to see you. Yep. We were bringing him EpiPens for him and the firefighters. Yep. Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did that for 2 years, and while I was here, when I was with the Rangers, I kept having, really bad foot and ankle pain. And I'm like, I'm just getting old. Just keep running. Shut up. And, what was I, 30? You know what I mean? And so got down here to be an instructor, and we're running students on the road pretty much every day, and it got to a point where I couldn't walk, and so I got a doctor on base whose brother was a TACP, right? So when I'm at Fort Lewis, I go to the flight dock at McCord, and I say, yeah, I'm a TACP, and I'm with the Rangers. They had no idea what that meant or how that could be possible. So they would just hand out Motrin. It's the same story everybody gets when you talk about military doctors, right? They don't
ice and ibuprofen.
Yeah. So I get down to Florida and start having increased foot pain, and they're like, go see this foot doctor. And within 5 minutes, the foot doctor looks at my MRI and she goes, the bone's dead. And so their options were like, to fuse my ankle, or put screws in it, or a cadaver bone. They had all these different solutions, but all of them would require me to pick a different job. And so the doctor was like, you need to be medically separated. And at the time when you had less than 15 years, the unwritten rule was you would just be separated instead of retired. So, but nowadays, I mean, gosh, I know guys that have been in for 4 or 5 years and get medically retired. But yeah, I just got medically separated at 10 years, and that was in 2005. And so Tanya was Air Force at the time as well, so she was stationed at Eglin. And so she had about a year left before she would be doing assignment. So I went to work in real estate and got my real estate license and did that for a little over a year.
Oh, I didn't realize you were doing it in this area.
Yeah. Yep. Sold a couple houses.
Might get back into it one day.
Sold 2 in one day. Sold 2 houses in one day to two 7th group guys. Anyway, but
I know a brokerage you could go to right now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I know one. I'd love to have you. You'd be the tallest guy there.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So that was 2005, 2006, and then we went out to Nellis for 3 years, and that was. Let me back up. Sorry. So my daughter was born while we were here in 2004. And no, I really need to back up. I'm sorry. So I remember being in Afghanistan, and we heard Pat Tillman was coming to the Rangers, and then we heard he was coming to 275, and it was just super motivating to hear someone who doesn't have to, that does, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Honestly, it's the same thing I get when I look at you and when I look at Zeb and when I look at Brittany and Jeremy. None of y'all have to. Like, you guys could do whatever you want with your lives, and you choose to give back and to do the right thing. And that's what makes you guys all special people, right? So, so hearing Pat was going to come to 275, everybody's motivated and excited about it. And then I never got to meet him because I was with Charlie Company, and he ended up going with Alpha Company. So I think he was in Iraq while we were in Afghanistan. And then when I left Afghanistan, I think he was still in Iraq. So I never got a chance to meet him. But so fast forward a year, now it's 2004. So I left Afghanistan in June of 2003. Yeah, and then got down to Florida. And April of 2004, right? So fast forward, 8, 9, 10 months. And my daughter had just been born on April 21st at Eglin. And we were still in the hospital the next day, and I walked by the TV in the chow hall, or the snack bar area, whatever, and saw on the news that Pat had been killed in Afghanistan. So, yeah, just crazy things that that you remember
Yeah.
that impact you like that?
I remember seeing his face like with the beret on when I
Yeah.
was like still in high school,
Mhm.
and I just remembered like he looked like a GI Joe to me.
Yeah.
He just looked like an American like hero warrior.
Right. Right.
Like I just remember looking at that and I was just kind of like, that's kind of like how like I want to be one
Mm.
day, you know. That was actually, I think that was before he was killed. Because I just remember hearing the story and I was like, this is crazy
Yeah.
that this guy
Right.
goes from the NFL
Mhm.
to being like an Army Ranger.
Yeah.
I just thought that was like super. It was motivating.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very motivating.
Yeah. Yeah. Not the first time it's happened. There was actually a guy. Wish I knew his name.
The other Ranger, you talking about the Pittsburgh guy?
No, there's a guy in Vietnam.
Oh,
There's a. I'm pretty sure he was an NFL player in Vietnam that did the same thing.
I know there was one not too long ago. I think he might still be in the NFL, but he was an Army Ranger.
Oh,
Big guy.
Villanueva.
Yeah, big guy.
Yep.
He's like a lineman or a linebacker.
Yeah,
or
I think he's
something.
retired now, but
Yeah.
played for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Is there other people like that were in the Rangers that you know of?
Oh, I mean, I can't think of any other pro athletes, but yeah, just a special breed of people, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I was in Washington, they had Tillman Way. They like renamed. I can't remember. It was one of the roads up there, or up on the highway or a bridge or something. But yeah, it was like Tillman Way.
Yeah.
So yeah, daughter was born.
Mhm.
That's when you were already out, or you were still in?
I was still in.
You're still in.
Yeah,
Okay,
I was still in. Yeah, that was in 04. I got out in 05. So, but yeah, so 06 comes around. We end up going out to Vegas, and I think my first job out there was with SAIC.
What's that?
It's now, gosh, what they renamed there? It's a huge defense contracting company. But yeah, we were working on Nellis as a contractor, a little 5-man team, and we worked in conjunction with the folks out at NTC, right? So we were the green flag, which is the air portion of the exercise at NTC. So I did that just for a few months, and then got moved to another position within the company to build a training course, and then ended up taking a job as a sensor operator in Iraq with Sierra Nevada. Probably the best job I've ever had. One of the shortest jobs I've ever had, but because I only did the one deployment. But what a great mission! You know, you're literally flying around every night looking for bad guys, and when you find them, tier 1 guys are jumping on helicopters to go and either capture them or kill them, right? And you're helping to find those people, individuals, you know, not just bad guys, but certain bad guys, right? So it was a really, really cool, rewarding job. While I was there, Tanya got deployed to South Carolina from Vegas, right? So a stateside to stateside deployment.
Yeah.
With 2 kids, and so my mom was living with us at the time, but didn't want to make the move to South Carolina for 6 months. So I ended up being Mr. Mom for the remainder of her deployment, which was interesting. But yeah, so then back to Vegas, and ended up working for a combat controller. Chris Crutchfield had a company, has a company, Rally Point, and they got a contract with the MQ-1s out there in Vegas. And you know, at the time, I remember being in Afghanistan. We'd have an MQ-1 show up, and they were just not good. You know, because at the time they were taking just anybody that could fly a plane to fill that seat. And this job was going to be to go into their schoolhouse and fix the way that they train. And it was me and Drew, the guy that's getting us into stem cells. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So me, Drew Wasson, and Chris Schutte were the first 3 guys on that contract. And you know, they took us right into the box, into the GCS, And they're like, all right, pretend you're the JTAC. And we were like, huh? So I'm like, I know where you're looking. I'll drive my truck out there. You can watch us, right? So we just, did some out of the box thinking and changed the way that they train and actually gave them something to look at. The first time those air crews were seeing gunfire was downrange. And so we changed that by, blowing things up in scenario to give them, we were shoving people in trunks. We were, digging IEDs. We made weapons, like we made RPGs out of plastic and then shot bottle rockets at each other. It was a blast, And under an IR camera, they're so zoomed in, all they see is the flash and the zoom out. They don't see the sparkler at the end, the little. They don't see that. But for training, it was great. It was a $1.59 per shot. But the training that those guys received was priceless, because now they're showing up downrange, having already been stressed and having already seen gunfire, and can pick out the differences of things going this way and figuring out kind of what the scenario is how it's unfolding.
Yeah.
So
Rally Point's still around today, right?
Oh yeah. So we did that. Just me and me and two guys, and then we turned it into about 150 people.
Wow.
Just through some creative marketing and capturing videos and showing other units what we were doing, and then the weapons school saw it and they wanted some action. So turned into about 150 people. That got me promoted, got me moved back here to be the executive VP of the company. And I think we went from about 8 or 9 people to almost 200 people in about 2 years.
Wow.
And made Inc. Magazine's list of fastest growing companies in the U.S. 4 years in a row. We would have made it 5 years in a row, but we just didn't know about it the first year. So we didn't apply. But yeah, it was great, and what I've always loved is, that was just one of probably 6 different startups I've been at, where we've always found success. But what's fun about it is you get to wear so many different hats, and you get to learn so many different functions of business, and you're not just pigeonholed into what you did in the military. You're really doing everything from HR work to finance work, and managing operations in between, recruiting and retaining people, and building company culture that is what we always wanted it to be when we were in the military. When you had to do all the stupid crap and you had to work for the dumb people,
Mm-hmm.
Now we're bringing that into the commercial sector, and we're making it fun and enjoyable, and creating jobs for people from our community and their families. And that was always very rewarding. I think we probably, over my time in between a couple different companies supporting the JTAC community, I think we probably hired 400 people maybe between all those different companies.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Would you say this is where you learned like your kind of like business leadership skills, was working?
Oh
there?
yeah, for sure. I love learning. It's so funny because I grew up not wanting to learn, not wanting to be told anything, but I really do actually enjoy it now. So that's a big regret of not being a sponge when I was younger and being surrounded by smart people. I did probably what most kids do, and assumed I knew everything. But yeah, so I've worked for some great leaders. I've worked for some bad leaders, and there's some things that you can learn, obviously, from both. But what's funny about leadership is most of the problems are so common. There's books about it. Right?
A lot of books about leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the problem is people don't read them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
no, because you had good leadership. That's why I asked, because there's very few people I will personally go like put my trust in and follow. and like never had that doubt with you. Especially not going off topic here, but when you got into the law enforcement's when you didn't back down from when they were trying to kick us out of late lore, I was like, I like this guy. I was like, I really like this guy, because most people would just kind of be like, well, this guy is law enforcement. I have to just, I have to leave and not stand up. And you're like, no, you're like, you're about to go viral. I'm going to pull the camera out.
Mhm.
I'm going to start asking hard questions in a respectful way. But a lot of people won't do that.
Yeah.
They would just turn around, look at the team, be like, let's get back in the truck, guys. Let's go home. You know?
But what's funny is, and that's how I've always approached business too, is people generally like to say no.
Yeah.
But that's part of the game, right? They want to say no, and now your job is to convince them to say yes.
You must have been a really good sales agent in real estate.
We got in. But yeah, it's a lot of people are just, they take the easy, lazy route
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to life, whether it's communicating, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's raising your kids, whether it's doing your job at work. A lot of people just take the easy way, and took me a long time to find out that the easy way is never the right way. I've made just a ton of mistakes in my life, and every one of those mistakes, I was drinking, being selfish, and being lazy. Right? In every case, those three things applied, and so that's what I want to teach my kids is you don't have to make those mistakes and learn the hard way. You can just be smarter about the decisions you make and the things you put in your body and the things that you do with your body. So.
Yeah. On Sierra Nevada,
Mm-hmm.
when you were working there, was there any like notable people that you guys got, like high value targets that you were pointing out?
Not any that I can think of off the top of my head. I know.
Because y'all probably went out, like y'all were flying every night, right?
Oh yeah. And I know when I was with 275, we had several times where we were briefed that we're going to get bin Laden. Like he was in this tea house yesterday, right? And then 2 days later, somebody's like, oh, actually he's in Iran. I was like, well, how did he get from the tea house over there to Iran in 2 days, guys? Like maybe our intel's not quite what it should be right now. But yeah, this was Iraq was it 07 or 08? I don't remember, but it was right during the time when McChrystal was doing the surge to take down all the insurgents in Iraq. So it was busy. It was real busy. It's funny. I ran into Chris Domay when I was there, and Chris was a PFC on my first and second deployments with 275. And we all lived in the same tent together. And as the lowest ranking guy, the Rangers would always pick on him, and they'd be like, Domay, fuel's out in the heater. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. It's like 2 degrees outside. It's snowing. And they're like, Domay, go fill the tank up. Go fill the fuel up. And so, he was just always a really, really great kid, did what he was told, wanted to be the best Ranger he could be. And he ended up becoming the first JTAC in the regiment.
Oh.
And they actually named a building after him out at Fort Sill, because he got killed on his like 15th or 16th deployment.
Oh, wow.
So I was dropping my kids off at elementary school and heard it on the radio. Just a random news report, about an attack in Afghanistan that had killed some Americans, and they said his name on it. So, I ran into him in Iraq, and gosh, he was a grown man. He was like 18 or 19 when I knew him, and fast forward almost 10 years later, and he's sitting there as a man running things. It was really cool to see. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what happened after Rally Point once you finished over there?
So I went to another startup in the contract close air support community, and I was the COO there, and we went from about $1 million in revenue to about 15 million in about 2 years. Made that same list again of fastest growing companies.
Nice.
Did that for a couple years, and then started my own consulting company in 2017.
Okay.
I think.
Is that one still going? That consulting company?
Yep. So I work with companies from really any industry to help them. Again, wearing those different hats and all those different companies. I've helped companies with everything from strategy to recruiting to raising capital to helping them fire their own people. So
it's always good to fire people.
It's fun. Yeah.
I mean, like,
people need firing.
That was something that was hard for me to do initially as a business owner. Was I was always like, I can fix them, or like it's going to take me more time to go find someone else,
right?
Instead of just trying to fix this person. And Riz was the opposite. She'd be like, no, just get rid of that person now. And I was just like, no. And that was a hard lesson to learn, just repeating mistakes where I'm like, I did it again. And you just got to cut the fat.
Well, I think when you're the leader and you find out there's a people problem, chances are the rest of your team probably knew about it before you did, because they're seeing it up close and personal. And when you allow that to continue, you kill the culture.
Yeah.
Again, so common. There's books about it, right?
What would you say are really good books that you like when it comes to this kind of stuff?
I tell you, my favorite book is Talent is Overrated, and that talks about, a lot of people make excuses about. I'll use in the book they use Tiger Woods as an example, right? He was born that way. He's a great golfer. He was born that way. And what people are doing is they're making an excuse to show why they didn't put forth that hard work and that effort into becoming great at something. And so when you say you're just that good because you were born that way, it makes it to where now I don't have to feel bad about myself because I just wasn't lucky enough to be born with a great golf swing, right? I can't control that, right? And that takes all the pressure off.
Yeah.
But the reality is you can control it. He wasn't born that way. He got good at that sport because of all the hours and hours and hours and hours he spent with his dad on the course, at the driving range, at his house, perfecting his sport, right? And that applies to anything. Whatever you're trying to be good at, you've got to put that 10,000 hours in of deliberate practice to be good at it. You can't walk outside and kick a basketball at the goal for 10,000 hours and be good at basketball. You have to be deliberate about your workout, about your plan to achieve those goals, not just hope it happens. And then when it does happen for somebody else, just go, oh, it's just because they were born that way. When in reality, it's the same thing I said earlier about the easy way is never the right way. So if you have a goal without a plan is called a dream, right? A goal without a plan is a dream. So if you have a goal, you have to have a path to get there. And people often forget to make that path to get there. And again, they just look at other people and they go, well, you got there because you were just born that way.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example is no one gets a Ranger Regiment just because you were born that way.
Right.
The time, the hours, the effort into it.
Yeah, all the steps
to get there. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Literally,
now,
steps.
I've heard that 10,000 hour a lot.
Yeah.
Good buddy of mine, Chris. He's a stow, but he races cars professionally as well. And he was an Olympic bobsledder.
Oh wow.
Same with he just won the whatever circuit he was in. I think it was GTA something. I went to a few of his races last year, but he won like nationwide.
Oh wow.
And he's active duty. and he's big on that 10,000 an hour. Where
Mhm.
he's like, he'll get like he has a race car simulator at his house. He's like, I got to put like hours in
Yeah.
to get to that 10,000 because he's like 10,000 hours is basically I guess where you kind of become a master
Right.
or
Right.
start getting good at what
Mhm.
you're doing. And
Mhm.
he's a big believer in that, and it proves in
Oh
everything
yeah.
he does.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So after I guess that was a consulting company. You did that. When did aerial recovery or how did that come about?
So Seth Griffith
Yeah, I
is
met
a
him.
former TACP. So I've known Seth for probably 20 years, and I was trying to get in with aerial recovery as a consultant
Oh,
for about a year. I was reaching out to Seth saying, "Hey, how can I help? Help you raise money? Help you, manage operations? Whatever you guys need, I'm interested." And never heard from him. Well, can't say never heard from him. It never materialized, right? And uh, fast forward to January of 24, and this will all kind of tie together in a second. So January of 24 was my first interview with the VA for PTSD.
mm,
What's that? 21 years later.
yeah. Wow.
The first real interview. The previous interview was about 30 seconds in Pensacola. And I think the guy probably just heard Air Force and was like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, so I'm up at my sister's house in Georgia. We had just had Christmas and New Year's, and had my VA interview at her house. So I went down to the basement, took my laptop down there, and the doctor just started asking me questions, and I started talking, and just things just came up, And next thing I know, I'm sitting there in tears, just kind of going through some things. Remember the HLZ where the guy drew the kid drew the outline of me.
Oh yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
going out there February of 03. I was going out there, and some of the agency guys walked by, and he said something like, "Are you coming with us?" I was like, "No, I'm setting up the HLZ. Why would I be going with you guys?" And they were just walking up to the range area, and I'm getting HLZ ready and everything, and I hear an explosion, but I don't think anything of it because a lot of guys did training up there. And a few minutes later, I hear somebody not American on the radio screaming, and then it kind of all clicked, that something had just happened on the range. So me and one of the Ranger snipers run up there real quick and come up on a scene where one American's face down. The Afghan is kind of running around in circles, and another American sitting there missing his arm.
Mm.
And I'm, my buddy goes up and he's checking on the guy unconscious. I'm trying to get the guy who's lost arm, trying to get him under control. And in my mind, I'm looking around, going, "All right, let me find this guy's hand, and we'll put it on ice and we'll sew it back on." And then in my mind, that because that's what you see in the movies, right? And then I kind of looked around and realized that it was missed, right? And anyway, so fast forward in that scenario, the agency guy dies, and we did as much as we could do on the battlefield to prevent that, but so he dies, and then that's 03. I remember years later in Vegas looking this guy's name up, and Helgi Bose is his name.
Hmm.
And so Helgi met his wife at Harvard, and his best friend. So it's these two guys and the wife. They're all kind of palling around and stuff. And he gets killed in 03. And then, gosh, this was probably 2010 or 11 maybe by now that I'm looking this guy's name up. And come to find out that his widow married his friend years later. And then he got killed in a helicopter crash. I think he was with like the DIA or something in Afghanistan. Rotor blade clipped a building roof and crashed. So anyway, when you see people leave this earth, and then you want to find out more about them, and then to read those other just tragedy after tragedy that this woman and this family has been through and stuff. It definitely makes an impact for sure. And then you wonder, what could I have done differently? What could I have done different in training to be better at this, to prevent something like that from happening? And, you never know. But that one left a mark. And then, so now I'm in my sister's basement, kind of going through this with the doctor, and, got through that interview, and later that day, Seth called me and said, "Hey, we have a spot in our Heal the Heroes program. Are you interested?" And it was just, the timing was so, spot on.
Yeah.
Like I needed it, right? At that time, I was drinking probably 2 bottles of wine a day. Not living healthy, and not taking care of myself. And I had probably been doing that for about 5 years straight, just drinking constantly.
Wow.
And you make excuses for it. I don't want this person to drink alone, or I don't at least it's not hard alcohol, or it's not this, or it's not that. But at the end of the day, it's still bad. It's still poison, right? So go to the Heal the Heroes program, and it was 4 days down in BVI, followed by a full year of that program. And I think today is day 409 of no alcohol.
Nice.
Never felt better. I'll be 50 this year.
I think most people are shocked by that.
Yeah.
Even I am, just because you don't look 50.
Oh, I'm pretty gray.
You got the gray beard, but physical shape wise, you're in better shape than 20-year-olds. So yeah, even I was surprised when.
Never take the easy way.
Yeah, but 50's coming up this year, right?
This year, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Big 50 birthday party.
That's right. Yeah, so that's what got me into aerial recovery, and again, that was just in the Heal the Heroes program. And then while I was there, I talked to them about how I could help them in a full-time capacity. They brought me on as the chief development officer. So my job was to raise money and build relationships. And later that year, actually the beginning of this year, got promoted to chief management officer. Actually Friday was just my last day with aerial. Mm-hmm. So did 1 year in the nonprofit space, got a pretty amazing opportunity on the horizon with Zeb.
Yeah.
And so I do plan to stay with aerial as a volunteer. I'll still be helping bring in donors and partnerships, and helping veterans get connected for that Heal the Heroes program that I went through. So.
And disaster work. There's always.
Oh yeah.
Always going to be a disaster call for that.
Absolutely.
Before aerial, did you ever do any kind of human trafficking disaster work? Or?
No. So I ran our TACP association for several years as a volunteer. So I have some nonprofit experience, and then when I left that in 2015, so I did about 5 years as the president of that association, and then in 2015 till now, I've been an advisor for SOF Missions, which is ran by Damon Friedman, retired combat controller.
Oh yeah. Isn't is it Dr. Friedman?
Yeah.
I never met him, but I know.
Yeah.
Know of him.
He's a ball of fire.
Yeah.
Absolute ball of fire. So I've been an advisor for him since 2015.
Okay.
And again, his nonprofit is aimed at battling veteran suicide by attacking or by addressing physical healing, mental healing, social healing, spiritual healing. Whereas most nonprofits focus in on one or the other. His is a full encompassing organization that really is doing some amazing things.
I need to get him on the show.
Yeah.
He's in Tampa, right?
He's in Tampa.
Yeah, I need to get him on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So the human trafficking, that the first time you were kind of getting involved in that was with
through
Ariel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was a big. I said at the beginning, that was a big eye opener for me when we first spoke on the phone. I actually remember I was in the gym parking lot down in Naples, and I think we texted or whatever, got on the phone. You were talking about natural disaster and human trafficking. I was just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, those are way too big different missions. And then when you started breaking it down to me about like what was happening in Ukraine, places like that, I was just like, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
And when I tell people that now, they're like, oh, that really makes sense. Because I actually remember when we were in North Carolina, we actually got a report that they tried to kidnap some kids out of a shelter or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And even me, I was like, that's happening right now in North Carolina. And it blew my mind.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Anytime there's chaos, there's a special group of individuals that have a nice spot in hell waiting for them that try to take advantage of those that are already being, put through the ringer. So
you've told me a lot of stories that you've done with Ariel, the work you've done. There's one that kind of stood out to me before. I think it was that Dutch human trafficker.
Yeah, so that was before me. So This is interesting. The team was in Ukraine 3 days after the Russians invaded to evacuate orphanages. And Tim Ballard got a call from Mel Gibson and said, there's this Dutch pedophile trafficking Ukrainian war victims. Will you go do something? Right. And then Tim talks to his wife, and Tim's wife's like, you're going. Right. That's that's the story of that man's life. Right. So Tim goes over there, and Tim's like, all right, well, if I'm going, I got to call Jeremy. So he calls Jeremy Locke, co-founder of Ariel. And Jeremy's like, I'm already here. So they team up, and there's actually a movie coming out about it this year. And I won't ruin the whole story, but the gist is this Dutch pedophile group they're literally activists, right? They're activists in the Netherlands for legalizing sex with children. And their stance was that if a kid can choose the flavor of ice cream, then they should be able to choose who they sleep with.
Wow.
So they're just, completely sick individuals, right? So they end up tracking these guys through Hungary and into South America. And these guys had gone into a small village in South America and bought a house, and they were turning it into a sex hotel for children. And they were paying all the local families to let their kids come there.
Wow.
So, and then when it all got busted, the families were mad because now they're not going to get paid.
That is.
It's a mentality you cannot reason with. It's a complete different culture.
It's disturbing.
Totally.
Yeah. Wow. That was South America?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, that's just, I never thought human trafficking was really like, I figured that was on the decline, not up on the rise.
Oh yeah, no. It's the second largest industry in the world.
Did you tell me before it was 50 billion a year? Or
I've seen 150 billion, and I've seen 230 billion. And then if you take all the organizations and put them together, right? Yeah. Which everybody knows in the nonprofit world, they don't all get along, right? Like Ariel Recovery, like we work with anybody.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people in the nonprofit space that are, guarding their donor dollars, and they don't want to share. And so they try to keep things to themselves. But point is, if you were to take all those nonprofits and put them together, they don't represent even $1 billion being spent to go fight a problem that's generating $230 billion a year.
Yeah, it's crazy how much
So
money.
the bad guys are clearly, progressing as, the good guys chase them.
Like
So,
when I thought human trafficking, I just thought it was like some drug addict person kidnapping two people and then like throwing them like in a boat or in a
it's a
car or
business.
something like that.
It's a business.
I didn't realize how wide scale, almost like I don't want to call it a professional business, but they operate it as like an actual business. It's crazy how bold they are. Just like that activist in Dutch, like that the fact that they're actually like publicly activists.
Right.
I guess we just don't see that. I say we don't see that here, but then I remember some weird things the last couple of years with politicians coming out trying to like get rid of the age thing. That was some California weird stuff, but I was just like, how is this guy alive? Like it just blew my mind when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back, to the beginning of time. People with money and power have used that for, taking advantage of others. They've always done it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Speaking of Jeremy, everyone thought you were him and he was you. Whenever we were in North Carolina,
Yeah.
They kind of look alike.
They think we're all related.
Yeah. I don't know how many times people are just like Jeremy or something. They talk, and you're like, no, you're like I'm Charlie, because they'd be like, oh yeah, I remember talking to you. You're like, no, we haven't met.
Yeah.
Happened all.
Yeah,
the
he's
time.
tall. He's tall. Has a big beard as well.
Yeah. No, good people. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
my first time meeting them was meeting him was in Helene, and I didn't meet Brittany until Nashville. But really well run organization. And like you said, they don't have to be doing this, but they choose to do it out of the kindness of their heart.
Right.
They're taking time out of their lives, their own personal family, to go do these good things, and they're busy.
Yeah.
I mean, how active is Ariel? There's always an operation going on.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, during Helene, we had Helene, we had Milton. And we had operations going on in Central and South America at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's always, unfortunately, there's always work to be done.
And even right before Helene, weren't you doing tornadoes in Oklahoma and Nebraska?
When was that? That was in earlier in the year, April or May timeframe.
So you guys were responding to
out in
tornadoes
Oklahoma
as well,
right?
When they had all those.
Right. Interesting thing out there too. What we saw in North Carolina with people not being prepared. I remember walking up to the EMS director in this town in Oklahoma, and he was completely overwhelmed. There was probably, that room, probably 50 people in it. And that represented all the volunteers for the whole town.
Oh, wow.
So not even nearly remotely the size and scope of Helene.
Yeah.
And he was completely overwhelmed and doing the best he could, but like they had no plan. And so we looked at him and we're like, you're in Oklahoma. Like, this is the only real disaster you should be preparing for is a tornado. Like, you should have a response plan to a tornado if you're the EMS director of this town in Hurricane Alley. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it all goes back to money, right? You talk about the education system's messed up. You talk about our ability to respond, our law enforcement. Everybody's doing the best they can, but if you're paying $20 an hour, you're going to get $20 an hour as an employee. Like, you're not going to get the cream of the crop people. Yeah. You're going to get the people that want to do it and that will do it for less money because their heart is in it. Those are great. But when you look at averages, your top performers are going to higher paying jobs. So those industries suffer because we're not putting the money into the compensation to attract the right level of people to lead those functions for society.
And just kind of like how the military, a lot of those people in those positions, they didn't get there because they're good. They got there because of time. Right. Because they stayed the longest. Whereas a lot of your top performers were like, I'm done with this nonsense. I'm leaving. Right. So a lot of times you just don't get the quality you want out of someone who's been there 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
They're not it.
I mean, you saw the guys at Savage, you
Yeah.
know, pop up and really take over.
Oh yeah. They're still getting after
Oh
it
yeah.
right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you got it. Some former soft guys get together, get creative, and make things happen. Right. You could do that in every town. You know, you could take $1 million per, you know, decent sized town for staff and put a team of soft guys in there and save hundreds of millions of dollars in waste during natural disasters. But what we do is we take some chucklehead who's got an EMS certificate from some online, you know, organization, and he pops in there and has really no plan or no motivation to do much.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this wasn't this guy's first day on the job, right? All the law enforcement officers we interacted with that were preventing us from doing our job, that wasn't their first day on the job. They had no plan.
Yeah.
And they just did what they were told. And they were told to restrict movement. That was the easiest solution. And what did we say earlier? The easiest way is never the right way.
Yep.
You don't get the results when you take the easy route, ever.
You know, it's funny about that. Something I don't think we've ever spoke about this publicly, but I think it was the next day after we ran to those law enforcement officers was when they had a robbery right there in town at the Dollar General in Lake Lure.
That's right. Who was it?
It was the dude's wife,
Amy. Amy was meeting Jay at the Dollar General, and
down the road was that checkpoint.
He didn't really rob. He forced his way in.
Yeah.
I guess he did rob because he didn't pay for it.
The lady was opening the door.
She was opening the door, and he forced his way in and took whatever he wanted and left.
I think there was a couple of them too.
Yeah.
It was like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But it was just like literally less than a mile down the road was that checkpoint.
Right. 15 cops.
15 cops.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they know you're there. You're not doing nothing.
Right.
You're not patrolling. You're not doing anything. But yeah, I thought that was just so silly.
Yeah.
And they had no comms.
Right.
No way to communicate.
No plan.
No way to call and be like, hey, we're forced entry here. Nothing.
No plan.
So yeah, it was shocking. I guess, yeah, speaking of North Carolina, I guess we can talk a little bit about that. But if people want the real story or the full story, Sean Ryan's show was the best for that.
Yeah.
And especially because that was very fresh in our minds, because we literally left North Carolina, went right to the show, and then went right from there right down to Hurricane Milton, and did that. But, you know, when I look back on it, I think a lot of people were so shocked that we had no plan going out there. Like, and we had like an idea of what we want to do, but like you said, I think you actually said it on the show, we just kind of landed there and did the soft thing and just started like trying to get intel.
Yeah.
Because there was no intel that was going on. I mean, we literally just dropped our rucks off the plane, started trying to figure out a game plan and chit-chatting with people and how we ran to that Angel.
Well, I talked to our guys that were already, because again, when you and I were home after the first Helene tour down here, half of our team had already left to go to North Carolina.
That's right, yeah.
So they were already on the ground before, as we were landing, they had just gotten there, you know, a day or so in advance. And I'm calling them to coordinate pickup, and they're like, listen, the roads are out, so it's going to be a while. And I remember looking around at the airfield, and I'm like, the roads are out? Wow, look at all these helicopters. Wouldn't that be nice? And that's what I always say anytime I'm stuck in traffic. Man, I need a helicopter.
Yeah.
So we just were like, well, there's all these helicopters here. Let's go talk to them. And it just made sense. You know, I don't think it was any sort of, you know, major skill. It was literally common sense for us to go that route.
Yeah, no, very, very, very common
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
I still remember when we left the airfield that day, and you were actually getting out with the chainsaw cutting trees.
Oh yeah.
And I was so confused why there were so many down trees there, because I thought the hurricane got weaker, and we were just cutting trees, even just leaving the airfield in Rutherford.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was an eye opener for me, because I really didn't understand it. I was like, this is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, North Carolina was wild, man. But yeah, like Savage, what a good operation they had going. I actually just saw them when I went back up there right before Christmas. They were still operating.
Mhm.
They weren't at Harley Davidson no more, but they had just built like a little house
Yeah.
as like their kind of like little command post. And Aaron Schweitzer, the controller, I know, he's still up there. Just they're working every day.
Love it.
I mean, anything from just literally scraping mud out with tractors to clearing debris, cutting trees, help anybody the way they can. And yeah.
Yeah, I know Ariel, we're still coordinating trips up there frequently.
Yeah,
So,
Arrow hasn't stopped at all.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, I mean, more disaster work, but you went to California.
Yeah, that was the most recent one for the wildfires.
How was that? Did you put a lot of work in, a lot of roadblocks?
We didn't get anything done.
Yeah.
We got nothing done. So we had a team show up. The first team got there on a Friday, and I showed up the following Thursday, I think. And so from that Friday to that Thursday, the team on the ground was, checking in with all the different command centers to get on the volunteer list. So it was much bigger than North Carolina and much more bureaucratic.
Well, no shocker there.
So bureaucratic that we couldn't even get to the police to yell at them to let us in. Right?
Really?
It was a huge area to cover, and everything was blocked off. So yeah, we didn't get much done at all, and probably rightfully so. When you're going into burning neighborhoods, there's a ton of toxic waste and ash, and you can't just show up with 20 volunteers and throw on your N95s and work gloves and go start scooping things up. Somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So probably the right call for California to be so restrictive in who they let in. And again, I know we didn't show up with any, respirators or hazmat gear or anything. So had we got in, we probably would not have been very effective anyway. Not safely.
Yeah. No, didn't the fires just stop there? Like a few weeks ago?
When we were there, the website said it was at like 4% contained. And I'm in LA and I'm looking around. Number one, I landed at night and saw no orange glow of fire. During the day, there was no smoke. So I think the websites and the information being put out were much more restrictive than reality, right? They were like, oh, it's not contained, don't come anywhere near it. In reality, it was much more contained than they were letting on. And I think they probably did that to keep people out of the way so they could get the work done.
Yeah.
So
was there a lot of volunteer firefighters out there that you could
we heard that Washington sent firefighters, Oregon. I even heard the Ukraine sent 200 firefighters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know who paid that airline ticket.
We probably did.
But
yeah, I'm assuming. Yeah. And there was like 100, I think they said 100 billion missing. They couldn't account for something like that.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah.
Well, he invested half of what we gave him with that, what's his name? Sam Brinkman-Fried or whatever that kid's name was that went to jail.
Oh, that crypto dude? Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I was trying to think of some other stuff that we've never spoke about on North Carolina. Do you remember when we thought the dam breached?
Oh yeah.
At Lake Lure?
We had just left Lake Lure, headed to Rutherford.
Yeah.
Which puts us right in the path of the water if the dam was to break.
And half the team was at the dam.
And Barbara comes across the radio and says, "Attention on the net, the Lake Lure Dam has just been breached."
Yeah.
We're like,
that was scary.
Drive faster.
I mean, you were like, drive faster. You were like, go. You were like, go. And I was literally just picturing in my mind, like, there's just going to be this mountain of water just coming behind us.
Yeah.
I remember looking out the windows of the truck and I was just like, looking for roads to like try to get up on a higher ground.
Right,
But
right,
like
right.
it was kind of chaotic.
Oh yeah.
Now that I look back and kind of reflect on what all was going there.
Yeah.
Um, I actually thought we lost half the team.
Oh, for sure.
I literally did. I was
Yeah.
just like, man, this is just so crazy. Because I remember we had asked about or they were telling us the dam was secured.
Yeah.
Just like half a day before.
Right.
And it turned out it was not. I guess it actually did partially breach.
Well, it didn't help that the entire day before that, everybody was talking about the budgetary concerns with the dam and how the tax money had been not used.
I forgot about
to repair the dam.
The deputies told us that.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't they say it was like a $12 million repair?
Something like that.
And they had been putting it off for like 10 years
Right.
because they didn't want to pay for
it. The town
it.
didn't want to pay for it.
And I was like, you're going to kill your neighbors
right.
on the other side of this dam.
Right.
And like they just, I guess, didn't think of it that way.
Right.
But yeah, that was crazy when we thought the dam breached. That was, because I think that was actually, were we on our way? That was right before we did the baby rescue.
Is it the same day?
Was that the day that we?
It might have been. I don't remember.
Is that why we left? Because we were going to the airfield.
We were going to the airfield for sure.
That was the day then.
Okay.
Because the first time we flew in the helicopter was actually when we did that.
That was the day the dam.
Yeah.
Supposedly breached.
I think that was the day.
That's funny.
I want to say it was. I may have been mixed up in my timeline then because like everything was kind of like a blur. I still sometimes I'll sit back and reflect on things, or I'll look at like photographs. Like I think I may have told you this, but it was just recently. I looked at from the time we dropped the baby off at the hospital to the time we went and got Ramona. It was actually 27 minutes.
Yeah.
From leaving the hospital to there. I thought we actually had left and refueled, but we didn't.
Right.
We went straight from there to her. And that's when I started remembering we had to leave you and Zeb behind where she was to get her, the son, and the daughter out.
Yep.
Sorry, I was coughing there. I think we did tell you, but after we dropped them off, or say when we landed there, Mark thought he put the tail rotor
I remember,
in the ground because the helicopter was shaking.
Yeah.
And I know what it is now, and he figured it out, but from my like 12 hours of helicopter experience flying I have now,
right,
the stick is just so sensitive, and when the helicopter is on uneven ground, if you don't basically put it in the new neutral position, the whole helicopter will start shaking.
Got it.
So since we were on that slope like this and he was landed on it like that, he basically just had to like kind of like tilt the helicopter, but you can't really just tell. But because of that shutdown, the shutdown and startup takes a lot more fuel than just keeping the blades running. He didn't think we were going to have enough fuel to come back and get you guys.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know how far in depth we went on that story, but he was like, we're going to have to go back to the airfield and refuel and leave Zeb and Charlie there.
Yeah.
But that weather was rolling in.
Yeah.
And we saw it as we were leaving. We were taking off into the fog and the rain. And he was like, man, like, I just don't think we're going to be able to do it. And he was like, but we have no way to talk to them. And I remember right before we left, Zeb had that Garmin in reach and it wasn't even working out there. We couldn't even send text messages.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm now thinking, I'm like, okay, if we don't go back there, we have their gear in the helicopter, one, but then they're going to be thinking we crashed.
You could have just sent Sean for us. You could have just had Sean walk back over for
Sean
us.
back over the mountains, right? Yeah. But I was just thinking like, man, they're going to think that we died.
Yeah.
They're going to be freaked out.
Right.
They're going to be trying to get a game plan on like, well, we have to do something. So when we actually took off from there, we had another fuel delay. We took off. We hovered there for a bit. He's like, okay, the helicopter's. It's like, I think the helicopter's good. I'm making it sound like everything was good. Like there's a check engine light that says you're good to go, but he just hovers and he's just like, you feel anything? I'm like, no. And I also tell people, I've only known Mark here for probably 30-ish, 45 minutes. Like I don't know this guy. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, if you think it's good, I think it's good. I don't feel no weird vibrations.
Right.
So once we took off out of there, we start hearing this slapping, banging, and it was the seatbelt that was outside the door.
Right.
And he actually thought it was their seatbelt. And so we were looking. He's like, I gotta land somewhere. So we're looking for a new place to land. and wasn't really good options because of that fog where it was coming in on that one side of the mountain. And we saw this kind of like one area up on this hill. Same thing. We're coming in there. We're like looking, spotting. I get out. It was actually Mark's seatbelt got
Oh
out the
wow.
door. We thought it was the passengers in the back.
Yeah.
So left the helicopter running. I went out the front. I opened his door. I threw it in there, but it was another fuel delay.
Mm.
And he was just like, I don't know, man. I think we need to go back to the airfield. He's like, I just don't know if we're gonna have enough time to like. His big concern was if we went back and got you guys and then got caught in the weather.
Right.
Then he's like, we're totally screwed.
Right.
Like we have to just literally find a field and just sit there, and then we won't have enough fuel to even take back off and go.
Right.
And we'll have to find someone to like, I guess, get a truck out there somehow and bring jet fuel to the helicopter.
Yeah.
And I'll have to ask Mark how much fuel we actually had after we got back, after we picked you guys up and went back to the airfield. But generally, you want 45 minutes reserve time.
Yeah.
I think we got back with like 15 minutes.
Oh wow.
Or something like
yeah.
it was pushing.
Close.
And 15 minutes sounds like a long time, but I mean, when you're yanking on the power and hovering, like the time starts dramatically dropping more.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were pushing it. We pushed that pretty hard. I need to ask Mark if he remembers, but that was kind of wild doing that. Yeah. Anything you can think of things we never spoke about in North Carolina?
I saw a lot of stories about the Amish showing up to do things. We never saw them there, but
I did.
Did you see them?
When I went in December?
Yeah.
I actually saw them. They were everywhere.
Yeah.
In Swanoa, right down the road from where Savage was, we ran into this pastor there who was basically kind of like heading all the collection for food and toys and everything. And he told us the Amish built all these little houses, but code enforcement wouldn't allow the locals to move into it because it didn't meet code. So he's like, I literally have these little wood houses. Code enforcement will let them stay in tents, but not in a little wood house. And I was just like, this is mind blowing.
Yeah.
But he was telling me that, I know I asked you, but he was telling me FEMA was taking the trailers back from the people at that time. They had given them temporary trailers. And I guess the timeline was expired, or like they only get the trailers for so long.
Yeah.
And they were requesting like an additional like 120 days for the trailers because wintertime was coming through. And it was kind of like not really getting anywhere. And he was going off about it. I mean, this is a preacher. This is a man of God.
Yeah.
And he was just like, they're torturing these people. He just kept using that word. He's like, they're torturing these people here.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know if it's because they want their land or whatever.
Oh, there were rumors about everything from.
There was rumors, everything, right?
Yeah.
But he was like, I don't know why they're torturing these people. He's like, they're literally kicking them out of these temporary trailers. And he's like, and you can clearly see they have nowhere to go.
Right.
And, same with the Amish houses. He's like, they built him a wood house and they wouldn't let him do it. And he was furious about it. But he did tell me he was in contact with someone in President Trump's like cabinet on his team. And I guess they were already like saying like, hey, the day we get inaugurated, like this is the money that's coming to you guys. We're going to get rid of that red tape. And now we're clearly seeing that happening.
I think it's funny, Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel were on Sean Ryan right around the same time we were. And so I sent Sean a text and I said, hey, so Pete Hegseth gets SecDef and Kash gets FBI. You think maybe we could get FEMA? That would be an amazing thing to do, to be a part of that, help those guys get straightened out. I don't even know if you need a federal agency. You need like one guy in DC to manage, different regions, and then those regions manage their areas. And you need a chucklehead in every town that knows the right way to respond to a disaster.
We talked
and those guys need to be the same guys, just like Savage, right?
Yeah.
You could have a Savage Freedom entity in all those different locations, all managed under one organization, versus having a team that deploys. The government's, you're never going to win When you have to deploy a federal team, to respond to a disaster in some small town America, you're never going to be on time.
No.
You're always going to be late.
No.
So why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just push those funds down at the operational level and have those areas staffed and equipped to respond?
Yeah.
I mean, they know what they're most likely going to receive. You know, the Southeast is going to be most likely hit with tornadoes and hurricanes. You know, the West Coast is going to be hit with fires and earthquakes. Like we have this data.
We talked about it, but I was like, they need to get rid of FEMA completely.
Right. Yeah.
And then every state needs to stand up their own FEMA that is specific for their state.
Right.
Because like Florida, where we had hurricanes, right?
Right.
Floods, hurricanes. We don't need a mountain response crew in Florida because it'd just be a waste.
Right. Right.
North Carolina, well, they have coast and they have mountains. They need both of those. Yeah. Everything's specific to the state where they need it. I hope they go that route.
Well, here's the only way it would work is if you had, just like we did in the military where we had joint operations, you would have to have disaster response exercises done throughout the year during the off season for that threat to prepare those people to know how to work with each other. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, you can't just show up as some federal agency to, you know, find out who the sheriff is, who's in charge of this town. Like you guys don't even know each other yet, versus an environment where they were working together, you know, every 6 months to be prepared. But yeah, I agree with you. It should be pushed down to the state level.
Yeah, everything just needs to be state level.
100%.
That way they can respond to it immediately. They're not waiting on federal.
Yep.
So I think even wasn't FEMA, it's a 72-hour response before they even show up.
Yeah, too late.
Yeah, you're way too late.
Yeah.
72 hours, especially with how North Carolina was. I mean, 72 hours, people are literally they're dead.
And then that's what we said on Sean Ryan, right? Is if you're waiting for the government to show up in your darkest hour, you're going to die.
Yeah,
they're not going to be there.
Yeah.
So have your own plan.
Yeah, no, 100% on that, 100%. I was trying to think if there was any stories that we had from North Carolina that me and you have never spoke about.
Oh, I know. I think we came out with everything when we were.
I think we threw it all out there.
Yeah.
We
was
threw
so fresh.
A lot out there.
Yeah.
Actually, I threw a lot out there. I got a little flack on that one. You know, I guess I'll just clarify it. What that was. All the messages we were receiving.
Oh yeah.
I thought that guy was the commander of that squadron because I had 2 other 06s reach out to me from different squadrons. And that guy was a very high rank individual, part of that air crew.
Yeah.
And I had his text message and I actually showed it to Ron because Sean asked me, he's like, hey, do you have proof? And I was like, yeah. And I showed it to him. And he was like, good enough for me.
Yeah.
But it literally just said this was a effing photo op for Kamala.
Right.
The plane's not even going. And the guy was just going off about it. And with who this guy was in that unit, and I'm like, this is super credible.
Yeah.
Now, I had that conversation with him. I hadn't spoke to the guy in probably a week. And he never updated me that eventually that plane did go a week later.
Right.
So when I said it, I thought it was accurate. But the plane did go. Although there were some weird delays.
Well, here's what's funny. Here's what's funny. Yeah, you relayed what you were told.
Yeah.
The real disconnect happened when our own Air Force couldn't muster one C-17 to fly from Charlotte to Asheville.
I think if I remember, it was a 23-minute flight.
So they loaded the first plane.
They said they couldn't go because of pressurization.
They loaded the first plane, then they had to unload it because that plane broke.
Yeah.
They put it on the second plane. That plane also broke. So it waited till the next day for the plane to be fixed for it to leave.
Yeah.
So what's funny is, like you said, that part of the interview got a lot of flack. But
the only part, it was funny because the people, all those news agencies came out within 48 hours to dispute that.
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't you dispute anything else?
Well, yeah. Well, it's funny. Like I said, they disputed that while also highlighting the fact that we didn't have a single flyable C-17.
Yeah.
That's not a story. That would be a story that I would want to hear about.
And that was a C-17 unit.
And the other disconnect is, that guy was probably told that.
Yeah.
He didn't just make that up.
No, I spoke to him after,
Yeah.
and at that time,
Yeah.
that's what that was his understanding
Mhm.
of what it was at that time.
Right.
I'd love to say a little bit more, but um, to protect
Sure.
that person,
Yeah.
because they went on a witch hunt, and he was afraid that he was going to get caught and basically get busted.
Yeah.
Because I actually found out, I found out the actual squadron commander was a very left wing who lived in Asheville, because this is a guard unit.
Yeah.
So this guy was going on a witch hunt
Yeah.
to figure out who was basically leaking information that
But again,
that was very accurate.
why was he not going on a witch hunt to find out why he didn't have a flyable C-17?
Yeah, because even when I looked up, I mean, anyone can go on like FlightAware, but when I looked it up, because I remember flying my own plane from Rutherford to Charlotte, and it only took me like 20 minutes in my plane. I'm like, C-17 is double my speed,
Right.
triple my speed.
Right.
And when I looked at their flight path on FlightAware, I think they never went above 9,000 feet. So I'm like, okay, well, the pressurization, you don't even need it. But I was like, maybe it's actually a checklist item. You can't fly. I get that.
Sure.
Can't fly it. But it's just like, you're right. Like, why did it take 2 or 3 days to get one C-17? And why wasn't that C-17 a week earlier? That was my other thing. Because this was a week after the hurricane hit. I'm like, why wouldn't you send that a week prior? But you only waited until, at the time, VP Harris shows up. And now you're sending the C-17. So,
well, but it's, again, John, common sense. You load a C-17, take a photo, unload the C-17. What do you think that's going to tell people? Yeah. It's already, you know it's an election year. You know that people are looking for reasons to throw people under the bus. What do you think someone's going to say? All they had to do was control the message by putting out a statement and saying, the plane was loaded, it's broken. We're going to send a new one.
Yeah.
That's all they had to do. They didn't do that. Then rumors start spreading and things get said.
Yeah.
So it's their own fault for not communicating up front. Number one, it's their own fault for not having airplanes ready. Number two, it's their own fault for not communicating the message.
3, I think, in my opinion, a week too late.
Oh, completely late.
Like 100%. Way too late, because there were so many civilians already flying planes out there. Yeah, I think actually that's one point. I don't think we ever spoke about this, but when you and I were out there, they had that one plane crash at Rutherford. I'm sorry, caught on fire, crash landed in. There was another plane that went down in that open field. I think me and you were actually near Swan Noah. Right. But there were civilian planes that were going down because of like maintenance issues.
Right.
Maybe they shouldn't have been flying those planes, but I forgot who brought it up. Maybe it was Zeb's wife or something. But if we would have had the government response that we should have, those civilians would have had never taken it upon themselves to go fly those supplies that were
100%.
And we had people that were, luckily those people did not die.
Right.
But I mean, they potentially could have lost their lives trying to go do something that they shouldn't have had to do in the first place. So
absolutely.
Yeah. We thought that guy was dead. I remember that at Rutherford. That plane was broken up and just charred. And I was just like, I remember we were like just looking at it, and then I forgot, was it Tristan that came out? He was like, "Oh, he's alive."
Oh, I didn't see this.
You weren't at the airfield? Oh, where were you? You were always with me.
I have no idea. I don't remember that at all.
We landed one day, and there was like a Cessna they had pulled off to the side by the hangar, and it was completely it was like crumbled up and it was in pieces.
Oh wow!
And it was like black smoke. It was like charred.
That might have been because there was a couple of days where you came back to Wilmington with Zeb, and then you guys picked me up.
Oh, we dropped you off at the ranch.
So I may not have been at the airfield that particular day.
We'd probably drop you back off of the ranch because this was at the evening time. And that's right, because we were going to get my plane. That's why we landed.
Yep.
And I'll show you the photo of it later. But we saw it, and I just remember Mark was like, "That guy's dead."
Oh wow!
Yeah. And we were just like, "Oh man, I can't." And then we were like trying to figure out what happened. I think it was Tristan came up to us. He's like, "Oh no, the guy's over there." And we were like, "What?" So this guy was coming in. He was flying in supplies from I don't remember where, and then I think it was a few hundred feet as he was on a short final. The engine or the plane literally caught on fire in the plane, and he basically just descended immediately, like faster than what he should have done, just to put down the runway, and just crashed into the runway. And I mean, like literally just crashed in
Wow.
there and
Wow.
jumped out. And his back had got like some burns on it, and that was it.
Wow.
And he actually refused to go to the hospital. I guess they actually like called out an ambulance or medical, and he was like just some old tough dude. He's like, I'm good. Like, I'm good. And they're like, no, you need to go. Because I think if I remember, they told me the back of his shirt had actually like burned.
Wow.
Or something like that. And he was like, no, I'm good.
Wow.
So yeah. I thought I just thought you were.
No, I didn't see that.
You were there on that one. Yeah, man, what a crazy time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing I am looking forward to this year though is baby Mason's birthday at Disney.
Yeah.
It's coming up in September.
Yep.
I was just talking about that the other day with I think with Eddie Gallagher or something like that. But yeah, I was like, someone asked me, or you know what? Someone was asking me how I plan my calendar as a business advice, and I said it's really hard for me to plan something because there's always things that come up where I hate to say that take higher priority. Where I'm like, hey, I have to go do this, or maybe there's a disaster and we're going out with Ariel or the SMU. And I said there's only one thing on my calendar this year. And I said that was baby Mason's birthday. Wow. I was like there's nothing higher priority than that. There's nothing that's gonna be like, oh, well, I have to get like, no, that's the only thing that I actually have like on my calendar.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
We can't outdo Dr. Phil and Sean Ryan on this show. So
that's right.
Which actually I did talk about Dr. Phil when I was on Anti-Hero, where I was like trying to cry when the grandma came out. I was like, we did not know she was
that
there.
Was tough. Yeah.
I was like, we had no idea that I forgot her name. It's on my Facebook, but Lisa.
Yeah.
When she came out, I wanted to cry, and I was like, I just remember I was biting my lip, and I was like, don't you do it. I was like, don't.
So that was funny, right? Because Dr. Phil, he tried to drama it up a little bit.
Yeah, he did.
Right? Because he was like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but something to the effect of that, we lost contact or we forgot to get contact information, which is funny, right? Because the whole mission started with me calling her.
Yeah.
Right? Like I called Lisa from my phone to her cell phone to find out, the full situation before we got there. So there would be no way for us to lose contact information because we spoke already, right? So,
yeah. Well, I forgot how long it was after we did that, but you mentioned it to me. You showed me the photo,
right?
Like me, Zeb, and Mark, and you're like, "Hey, like here's the baby," and I kind of had like forgot about it because of how busy, like what was going on.
Right.
And I was just like, "Oh, that's the baby." Like I was like, "Oh my god!"
Right.
And I forgot because you actually had been in contact with her. And I was just like, I think that's when it kind of like maybe kind of hit home for me, where I was just like, "Wow, like that's like we're doing this here stateside, like with our own people that we can be in contact with, just as something as Facebook.
Right.
This isn't like we're just rescue someone from overseas. We're never going to see that person again. No contact. No nothing. Like these are literally our neighbors.
Right. And there's a ton of those stories that never got told from people who never made it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that number of casualties it was just never accurately reported to begin with.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Real quick, I want to show off Savage Coffee right here. Let me back up because I know the camera's probably not in focus, but there's a reason I'm bringing this up. I'm not paid by them. I'm not sponsored by them. I legitimately have been drinking their coffee for over a year. I met the owner of it, Jameson Savage, at the Sebring Raceway, racing cars out there. Him and his brother from Naples. His brother Tim's the biggest real estate broker in Southwest Florida. Tim Savage, and his brother Jameson. They're just good Americans, and he owns his own coffee farm in Panama, like the country Panama. So I mean, they grow the berries. I realize they're called coffee berries, not coffee beans. So they have their own farm. And then he has a place in St. Petersburg, Florida. That's where his two younger sons live, and they roast the coffee beans. So during Hurricane Helene, he messaged me on Instagram through his coffee page, and it just said, "Hey John, this is Jameson." He was like, "What do you need? How can I help you?" And I replied to him. I said, "Do you have a helicopter?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I don't have a helicopter." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Well, send the helicopters up here if
Mm-hmm.
you know somebody." And this is when you and I were staying at the Horseshoe Ranch,
Mm-hmm.
and we actually didn't have coffee. And then the next morning, I saw someone with some instant coffee, and I was like, "Oh man, like that's what I really need." Because it had been, I think, a couple of days since I actually had a cup of coffee. So I replied to him and I said, "Hey, could you send me some your instant coffee?" I said, "The little bit of coffee I have up here is just horrible. I'd love some coffee."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Send me an address." So he sent me um, thousands. I think it was about 2,000 packets of instant coffee. Where I was like, "Hey, I'll make sure like everyone gets this. First
Mm-hmm.
responders, everyone doing rescue, military people." So he's just a good guy. Didn't want nothing in return. Like I said, I don't get nothing out of it. I just really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy their coffee. And then when Hurricane Milton happened, I messaged him. I was like, "Hey, we're actually coming to St. Pete, Tampa. Let me know if you need anything, if I can check on anything for you."
Mm-hmm.
And then he advised me, I think about the day after, that they had got like I think 6 feet of water in their coffee warehouse.
Oh wow.
And I was just like, "Oh no, like this is awful." So he told me he didn't realize the coffee that he sent to us in North Carolina had actually already got shipped out. And I didn't realize it either until Zeb texted me a photo of all the instant coffees. Like, "Hey, we got all the coffee." And I was like, "No kidding." So we actually it did not get destroyed in
Yeah.
the flood, but they took a pretty good beating over there. So if y'all want some really good coffee, and I should say this is the best coffee in the world, literally. Not because I'm saying this. He actually took first place, second place, and third place in the world in the Korean barista coffee like world championship.
Oh wow.
So like first place wasn't good enough. He took the whole podium, first,
Nice.
second, and third.
Oh wow.
Like literally, he took the entire
Wow.
podium. So his coffee beans. If you're like I guess a coffee connoisseur, like you're probably gonna know who he
Oh
is.
okay.
Like this is like the highest level coffee. I remember he told me one time when I first met him that his biggest buyers were like actually like I think it was Asia and like Middle East
Mm-hmm.
because they like to buy in high end coffee. But I mean, it is so good, and the fact that they roast it right here in Florida, I love that more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just good American. Just want to give him a little shout out.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had a cup. It's great.
Yeah, that's actually what we're all drinking. We had a little break, and
Great coffee.
it's good stuff, right, Randy? It's good stuff. Like yeah,
It's
good.
okay.
Randy's a little biased.
No, that's great. The coffee really is. It's amazing.
Randy has a conflict of interest.
I am one of those coffee connoisseurs that
Yes,
you talk about.
it's good beans.
It is actually very, very good coffee.
I will say it's the only coffee company that I've ever had where they own the farm.
Mm.
Most people buy the berries, they
Yeah.
roast them.
Right.
I mean, this guy like full blown grows it himself out of pure passion.
Where does he grow?
Panama.
Okay.
Yeah, he just does it out of pure
Mhm.
passion. Like this is his happiness is making coffee. And man, he makes good coffee.
Nice.
Real good coffee. I say his brother, literally the biggest, highest luxury, I would say he is broker
Mhm.
in Naples, but also an amazing race car driver.
Mhm.
His brother Tim, I forgot what circuit he races on, but he races an Aston Martin, and
Oh, wow.
the number on the car is 007, like
Oh,
007.
nice. Nice.
And it's like matte black, and I mean, like the dude can drive like you would
Yeah.
never seen. It's cool, but that's like his passion is the driving the cars.
Mhm.
But they're just good people, so I just
Yeah.
want to give that little shout out to them.
Absolutely.
Got to give out credit to, there's a lot of people that reached out to us when we were in North Carolina
Mhm.
that like I will always remember that and didn't want nothing in return.
Right. Right.
People that were just like, "I'm going to bring you guys this. How can I help? Tell me where to help." And like things like that, in a critical time like that means something to me. Like that, if you want to get in my inner circle, that's how you get in my inner
Yeah,
circle. It's like I see you during the worst possible times, not in the good times.
Right. Right.
And yeah, it touched me with a lot of people that we met out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, Ed Schulman was one of those guys. Ed showed up
Yeah.
with equipment from his company, Social Mobile, offering to help advance our ability to track people and communicate. And yeah, so like you're saying, people that just show up in those times are those are just special humans.
Good people, man. You know, I'll give another shout out. I want to say his name is Josiah.
Yeah.
It's Josiah, right?
Yeah.
From Naples.
Yeah.
This guy, amazing guy. He initially messaged me and said he was going to load up like a fifth wheel of supplies.
Right.
And he's like I think he's a construction heavy equipment guy.
Oh, by the way, looks like he's 18.
Very young guy.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. He's probably what, in his early 20s.
I remember I got his message.
Yeah.
I think he knew me maybe through someone else in Naples.
Mm-hmm.
And I got his first message where he's like, "Hey, I'm loading up a fifth wheel and I'm going."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Great." And then from that point to like the next 24 hours, I don't know how many thousands of messages I got, and I missed it. And then I think he actually got a hold of Riz or you, and then was like, "I'm here at the Horseshoe Ranch with the fifth wheel."
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh, like this guy actually did it."
Yep.
And didn't want nothing, didn't ask for $1. He just went up there and wanted to put in work, and he did. And he stayed there and put in work.
Yep.
So shout out to that guy. The guy is awesome.
Absolutely.
I still haven't met him in person yet in Naples, but I will soon. I really want to meet that guy. He's
Well, you met him. You met him when we were there.
Did I?
Yeah, he was there.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Man,
I mean, there was a ton of people there.
Yeah.
But you met him. You met him for sure.
Yeah.
When we were there.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
I thought I didn't meet him, but
unless that was after the period where you were staying off site, could have been. But he was definitely there.
No, yeah, because that was the first night I had to fly them back to Wilmington because they got caught in the fog.
Got it.
And they couldn't fly the helicopter. That's when I was. That's right. Because I was like, "Hey, this guy is there at the ranch," and then you took over him.
I think he ended up donating his fifth wheel.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Good guy. Good
Great
American
kid.
right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Good American
Absolutely.
right there.
Absolutely.
Any other good Americans we could think of? We could give a shout out to?
The Miracle Hope Foundation saw our Sean Ryan episode, and they're sponsoring us to go get stem cell treatment
next
week.
Next week.
A week from tomorrow.
That's right. I can't wait. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, like my knees, ankles, shoulders, back, everything are just busted up. So, I think we get five locations we're allowed to pick. So I'm getting both knees, both shoulders, and my spine done. I don't remember the number, but I think in the U.S. it's something like 500,000, right? For example, I don't know the right number, but somebody can Google it.
It's a low amount.
It's a low amount, right? But just to give you context, you can use like 500,000 stem cells in the U.S. We're getting 170 million stem cells. And all of this, they've been doing this, I think, for 5 years. And they're still using the same umbilical cord that they started with.
Oh, wow.
That's how many people they're able to treat just off of.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. No.
So 170 million, and then we go next Sunday. We'll do MRIs on site. That'll show kind of where we're starting from, and then we'll go back at 6 months, get MRIs again, get 50 million more stem cells, and then we go back 6 months after that, which would be the 1 year mark for 50,000 more stem cells and another round of MRIs.
Awesome. No, I'm excited about this, and we'll bring more information out on this as we get more. I think the intent is for me and you to go on a podcast while we're there getting the stem cells with, I think, the founder of Miracle Hope Foundation. But from what I know of them, amazing people. They want to help veterans. I think even first responders, but people that have injuries that need it. You know what? Speaking of good Americans, give a shout out, and this will tie into the stem cells. Doctor, the chiropractor we met.
Oh yeah.
His name is actually, his last name is Dick. It's Dr. Dick. It really is.
That's funny.
I think he introduced himself to us as Dr. Justin, probably for that reason.
Right.
But through Elizabeth,
Mhm.
when she asked me what she could help with, my SI joint was like out of place and it was messed up. And I told her, I said, I really could use a chiropractor. And I've always had like this SI joint issues and just neck and back issues from being in the military. So when that chiropractor came out there on the HLZ,
Yeah.
and
So you didn't. This is during Helene. We're
During
on the
Helene.
helicopter. We're about 3 or 4 days into it at this point. John can barely walk, and yeah. So this Elizabeth's from, I think, Charlotte.
from Charlotte.
So just another great American who is reaching out to offer support in any way, and she finds a chiropractor for you. And it was so funny because I didn't know any of that. All I know is we were flying around, and you were like, Mark, land right there so I can go to my chiropractor appointment. And I was like, how did you schedule a chiropractor appointment? How did
That's
you know
right.
we were going to be in this town? Like, I had no clue what was going on.
I forgot we were so busy. We didn't really have a chance to talk about. Yeah. So Elizabeth, I'm trying to remember her name of her friend. She was the PA.
Mm-hmm.
When Elizabeth reached out to me, I don't think we've ever publicly given her a shout out other than like a post on Instagram, but she reached out to me and basically said, I want to help you guys any way I can. I said, okay, great. Thank you. I had so many messages.
Yeah.
And then she messaged me again the next day and she was like, I can't stand it. I'm coming to help you. I'm bringing you guys hot food. Tell me what airfield to go to.
Yeah.
So she was like, how many people? And I said, probably like 25 to 50 people. So she goes, what else do you need? She's like, use me. I have a lot of resources. And at that time I had that ear issue. My ear wasn't like really equalizing from the air pressure. And I could feel like, it was just like, felt like someone was squeezing on my eardrum and it was bothering me. And I kept like blowing my ears, which I found out later on was making it worse by doing that. Cause I'm like lifting the flap on my eardrum. So I was like, do you have an ear doctor or someone that can check me out? She goes, okay, hold on. And it was a few minutes later. She's like, yes, I have someone. They're going to be coming with me tomorrow with the food. And I said, okay, well, do you have a chiropractor by chance? I was like, there's probably no way you have a chiropractor. And she goes, I think she said something like standby. I want to say maybe 3 hours later, she goes, I have you a chiropractor. He's like one of the best in the nation, best in North Carolina or the nation. And she goes, I'm going to give you his number and you guys can just coordinate with each other. So the next morning she brought hot food, hot coffee, which just mentally what that did to us going that day.
And again, when they showed up, I thought you guys all knew each other for years. I had no clue how that.
She was an attorney from Charlotte. And then her friend, the PA, she starts checking my ear out. She's like, well, your eardrum's fine. It's like a little red, but there's no like, she's like, I think she said there was a little couple pockets of fluid. So she's like, here's some like, I think some Sudafed pills and some nasal spray. And she's like, this is basically just going to get you through until you can actually just like chill out and relax. Yeah. And I was like, perfect. So then I got the chiropractor's number and we just started sharing our location with each other. And I was like, hey man, like we're kind of going all over with the missions, but I was like, wherever, or he was like, just wherever you're at, if you see my location, just message me and I'll go meet you wherever you're at.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of toward the end of the day. Actually, I think we were near Swanoa because I remember that cross up on the hill. Yeah. And I saw his location. I was like, oh, he's near. That's when I was like, hey, I gotta go get this chiropractor appointment. And you were just like, I remember you kind of looked at me in the helicopter. You were just kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, are you trying to make a joke right now? And we were pretty tired.
Right.
And I remember you were just kind of like, what? So we actually tried to go land that first time at that parking lot, and we couldn't find a place to land. And I said, you know what? Just forget about it. The mission's more important because we were going to go drop off some, I think, food supplies or EpiPens. I was like, just forget about it. And I texted the doctor. I said, hey man, we're basically aborting. We can't find no place to land. He's like, no, there's HLZ here. I'm like, yeah, we couldn't land there. So we went down the road. That's when we dropped the supplies off, and that guy came up to you and Zeb. And he was like, you're those guys from the video. And then we actually went up taking like a group photo with him. He's like, I'm here because of the videos you guys were making. Yeah. And that's when it was kind of, people started doing that to us. And we were just like, oh, wow, like that video had a bigger impact than we thought. Right. So we took the photo, dropped the supplies off. That was like really just kind of a good warm fuzzy to hear that from those people. And then we got back in the helicopter and he's like, no, there's an HLZ here, the doctor. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, it's on our way back home to the airfield. So we drove over, and then we realized it was across like the highway.
Yeah.
And we saw that guy with the four-wheeler with the flag, and he was doing
Follow
like
me.
this. So we started following the four-wheeler down that road, and that's when we had that empty field.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that guy on the four-wheeler with that chiropractic table just get out and set it up. And I remember, I think we asked like Zeb Martin, hey, you guys want to get adjusted real quick? And they were like, nope, not getting adjusted.
Yeah. So you and I got adjusted. I got a good video of you getting worked on.
Let's post that video, Randy. I'll send it to you. It is really, it's funny because it took me about a week to actually post that video because I was like, is this going to send like the wrong message if I post this video like I'm getting chiropractic care in the middle of a mission?
Yeah.
But then I was like, man, like how cool was it that this guy did this? And I really was hurting because there was times where I didn't feel the pain in my back, but then there was times I would like move a certain direction.
Right.
And I felt like I was like being tasered, like where I was just like, oh my God, like my back was just hitting me.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, I remember instantly once he adjusted my SI joint and he did something to my neck, I was like, man, I feel like I was refreshed.
Right.
I was like, I can go out and operate more and more.
I remember us talking about this, about not sharing that video.
Yeah.
In the moment, it just didn't feel right to do it. But it's a great example of people coming together, like the way you tell the story of how Elizabeth got that all set up and you guys collaborated. Just another story of people not doing the easy thing. Yeah. Not taking the easy route and doing nothing. Everybody, doing whatever they could do to help, coming together to make success happen. That's what life is about. Yeah. And
anybody can help.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be an operator. You don't have to be this big, strong, like there's a place for anyone to help. Right. You know what? Now that we're talking about good Americans, the guy that was washing the windows of the helicopters.
Oh yeah.
That guy. I forgot his name. I posted him.
Yeah, him and his wife.
Yeah, him and his wife. Yeah. They literally came up from somewhere, I think, out a few hours away from North Carolina. And he was like, I'm just going to clean the windshields of his helicopters, which sounds kind of like, well, is that really like needed? But the amount of bugs we were hitting. Right. But I guess people make it more context. We land, refuel, and immediately leave. So to have this guy just come up and scrub these bugs off would save us 3-5 minutes. Right. Let's just go at 5 minutes. Right. And that's 5 minutes where we can just grab like a hot dog and a water bottle and then run back to the helicopter and get in and go. So like anyone can help. Yeah. Everyone's got a part they can play. And it actually renewed my faith in humanity. I will say that. Like it made me feel happy. Like that was like the happiest. That was as destructive as that hurricane was. It was also some of the happiest times in my life because I just felt like I was actually doing something. Yeah. And then just seeing everyone come together. Right. It just made me was just like, wow, like we're still good Americans.
Yeah, and that's the positive part about doing volunteer work is it helps you heal. Yeah. Right. You're helping others and it's helping you mentally by giving you a sense of purpose and taking the skills and the abilities that you have attained over your life, and now you're using those as a force for good, and that's always a great feeling.
Yeah, but to go back, talking about so many good Americans. There's so many good Americans out there, but the stem cell part, with the chiropractor. So like, this is why I'm really excited to get the stem cell treatment, which I was looking into prior, but man, that SI joint, it's always coming out. Yeah, and then just my neck and shoulders, and then I had surgery on my elbow, and part of my tricep tendon is like degraded, like kind of eroded from the tendonitis. Yeah. So just to know those stem cells are going to help do that. Yeah. Riz is getting it done too, because she has 2 discs in her back that are degenerative disc, and the stem cells will actually heal that. So I'm very grateful to the Miracle Hope Foundation for setting us up with CPI down there in Tijuana. Also really thankful for Combat Control Foundation. Mike LaMonica is the president over there, but he reached out and was like, hey, I want to help with this treatment, with the stem cells, and eventually start getting all operators and people that need it into that, because as Drew, our friend who was a controller, think he said he was blown up pretty bad in
Oh, yeah.
IUD.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, like, I think he said he couldn't even do like a sit up without back pain.
Yeah, Drew was bad. So Drew and I, like I said, worked together on that contract in Las Vegas, and you know, it was not uncommon every day for somebody to be talking about, hey, do you have any pills? So we were all broken, right? And we were all sharing stuff with each other. And yeah, that, you know, fast forward 6 years later, and I'm at Disney World with my family and find out I'm on my last pain pill. And I call the doctor to get a refill. And the doctor was like, well, you've gone through 90 days and 30 days. So, you know, that was a huge wake up call for me. So first it was pain pills, and then it turned into alcohol later. But, you know, the pain that, you know, you experience on a daily basis is significant. So yeah, I'm looking forward to stem cells getting some of these spots, some healing. You know, my left knee has got like 0 cartilage.
So that's a good point. In North Carolina,
Yeah,
you popped your knee. I think in day 4, day 5. I remember, I forgot what it was, what mission we did, but once we got back to the airfield, you said, John, when I stepped out of the helicopter in that last one, I heard this pop.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you were like already limping.
Right.
Immediately. And it got to a point where you're like, I might have to like not go out. And I was like, man, like I was like, I need you. I was like, I really need you.
Zeb brought me a knee brace.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
When he went back to Wilmington, he went and got you a knee brace, and that basically just put the Band-Aid on you, and you just suffered through it. But I think you were actually already scheduled for like a knee procedure that you had a delay because of North Carolina.
Well, they've been talking about doing a knee replacement for the last 5 years, but you know, I guess knee replacements only last about 20 years. So they wanted me to try to be as old as possible before having that done. But yeah, so my left knee doesn't straighten out or bend all the way. I had my meniscus removed when I was 19. Like it tore, right? And instead of them sewing it back in, you know, which I guess is what they do now, they just cut that torn piece out. And then, you know, add the wear and tear on it over the next, you know, 20 years, and here we are today. So
wow.
Yeah, it's almost bone on bone in my left knee. So looking forward to
the fact that these stem cells can heal
without
amazing. Having to cut you open and do surgery. So yeah, we're going to update everybody once we get the stem cell treatment done, and for I guess the next year the effects of it. But Drew said it really good. It is physical, but it also goes with the mental aspect.
Right.
Because he's like, if I can heal myself physically to where I can walk again, I can do things without pain, what that does to your mental health is significant.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the Combat Control Foundation and other foundations are starting to look into it as like also as a mental health treatment. Yeah. Which I think is definitely the right approach. Because I mean, if you're in your 30s or 40s and you can barely walk, you can barely do a sit up, I mean, that's demoralizing.
Right.
It's terrible for your mental health.
Well, and like I said, it takes you down other unhealthy habits. Yeah. Right. So you break your body in service to your country. I remember calling the VA number, press a couple buttons, never speak to a human, and I could have 90 days of narcotics in the mail 2 days later.
Oh, wow.
So they make it really, really easy for that. But I think I got rated at 20% disability from the VA at first. You know, that broken bone in my foot that died, big fat 0% for that, right? Wow. So they just make it to where you have to battle them to get what you need. And in the meanwhile, right, when you're waiting months and months and months and months for the VA to do something, what are you doing daily? Well, you're finding ways to reduce that problem. And that can be drugs, can be alcohol, can be, you know, any other sort of distraction people come up with to take their mind off of what they're dealing with. Yeah. So we've got to fix that problem. And I'm this is the administration to make that change happen. So I'm really, really hopeful for what's going to happen with the VA and veteran healthcare.
I think there's gonna be really good changes coming, like really, really, really good changes.
Yeah.
Who did they sign for the VA person? I can't remember. It's gonna be someone good because I mean the team that Trump's put together,
yeah,
all-star team.
Oh yeah,
Literally all-star team.
Yeah.
So yeah, stem cells, CPI, Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
More to follow on that for people. I think it's gonna do a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're getting kind of closer to wrapping up, man. Mm-hmm. This has been just great for me, like hearing about your childhood growing up. And I can't wait. Next week we get a whole week together in Mexico.
That's right.
Which I know we've been saying. It's like after we left North Carolina, like me, you, and Zeb and Mark, it just felt kind of weird because we were just so close every hour of the day.
Yeah.
And we kind of had to go back to our lives, and it's just kind of like, man, I miss these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Hanging out all the time. So I hope we all four of us get together, a little four horsemen.
For sure.
Reunion together and stuff.
For sure. Yeah. And Zeb, I'm gonna be the COO at National Coatings, working with Zeb on a daily basis, where we're going to take this commercial painting company and do some amazing things with it. So
yeah, I told myself I wanted this before. At some point, I would like to get all four of us in the same room together.
Oh yeah,
and maybe we get someone to interview all four of us, or we just sit here and just have a little fireside chat. Yeah. But I would love to hear Zeb's story coming up. I'd love to hear Mark's story coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Zeb took a commercial painting business and went nationwide with it and done what he's done with it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like his story's got to be incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to give it all away, but I mean, like he's got a minor league baseball team coming online in March. I think it is. Is it Bird Dogs, Salty Dogs, something in North Carolina?
Yeah.
What they're called? I mean, he sent me a T-shirt for it. But
oh yeah.
The guy is just a good American, just such a good dude. So I'm so happy that you guys are going to be together. Maybe I'll get some helicopter time in there with Mark. Flying the Red Dragon.
That's right.
Everybody. I didn't realize everyone was calling it the Red Dragon on social media.
Yeah.
They're like I don't know if I think you saw this, but like when people see him fly his helicopter from like Wilmington to Raleigh, they'll tag it and they'll be like, spotted the Red Dragon.
Nice.
And I was like, that's really, really, really cool. So that's where the future is going.
Yeah.
Working with Zeb. And
that's right.
I like to ask people, but like, what do you think is like your next 2-year goal? Like, what do you see happening in the next 2 years for yourself?
Man. A lot of things, I think. I mean, we're going to be, just with National Coatings, we've got offices in Raleigh, Denver, Boise, and Bozeman. And Zeb's talked about a couple of other cities to open. So really, really excited to see where we can go with National Coatings in the next 2 years. I'll be splitting a lot of time between here and in those locations as well. So, personally, my daughter graduates college this summer from UCF. So she'll be looking to get into teaching and continuing her education even after this to go on and eventually be probably a doctor in English. My son graduated and is in real estate now and is starting a couple of side businesses as well in basketball instruction. Desiree's real estate has taken off this year. She's crushing it.
Oh yeah.
In 2025.
She's been crushing it.
Yeah. So I think 2 years from now, I think it's just going to be hopefully a couple years of success and happiness and continuing to help make the world a better place and improve things, leave things better than the way I found them. That's always my goal.
Yeah. And for the younger people in the audience, if you're 18 knowing what you know now, what advice would you give 18-year-old looking to join the military, go into business? What kind of advice would you give?
Oh, wow. My weakness has always been patience. And I don't know if that's necessarily always a weakness, right? Sometimes you just have to say, I'm tired of waiting, and you just make things happen yourself. But I've always struggled with being patient and Obviously, the decisions I made in that age were not the right decisions. So I would say be careful who you let into your top 5. You are the average of the people you surround yourself with, spiritually, physically, financially, emotionally. You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So be careful of who those 5 people are at that age, especially. You don't have time for project friends at that age. You need to be around people that are of the same mindset, that are continuing to propel you forward. Stay away from drugs and alcohol. It's poison. Your body is still developing. Let it develop naturally. Don't poison it. Be curious. Ask questions. You don't know everything. You just don't know what questions to ask yet. Be a sponge of the environment, of the world, of the people around you, and go solve problems. Like, don't sit around and wait. I remember at that age, again, I was making horrible decisions. I also thought I was stupid. So give yourself credit. Be confident in who you are. Be yourself, and go conquer the world.
I think that's really good, man. That's really good. Wise words from a wise man with a lot of experience. That's good stuff. All right. Well, I think that's going to be a wrap. Randy, you got anything? That's good.
I just want to say, like, one of the things that I took away from this is, like, you kept saying, don't be lazy, get after it. And this morning when we were in a small group online, that was kind of like the thing that we covered. You want to talk a little bit about that?
No, go ahead. But they're talking about.
Oh, I'm not on camera, man. You do it. This is your show. I was just like giving you a little push to like.
No, I was just gonna say that's the Uncommon Tribe. I think this is actually a great little place to give a shout out to Jordan. We're on team together, former Jordan, pararescueman, together in SMU. Good guy. I trust him.
Absolutely.
The way I trust you, I trust him.
Absolutely.
And he's put together a really good network called the Uncommon Tribe. You can sign up for online, and every Saturday morning, 6:30 in the morning, we get together and we do like a little Bible devotional study. And then he has basically like programs and courses and videos to basically videos put together by really good individuals that are trying to lead men to men. Iron sharpens iron, right?
That's right. That's right.
So whether you're a young man, a boy, whatever, we're trying to get you on the right path. And that's why it's the Uncommon Tribe. I don't want to say too much on it because I might be saying some things incorrect or not saying it the way Jordan wants to say it. Sure. But I mean, he's put together such a good program.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
And it's open for everybody or what?
It's open for anybody.
Oh, wow.
He's even asked me to put some videos on there, just giving like some tax and business advice.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things in there. I mean, there's working out, there's business advice, there's spiritual advice, there's marriage advice, kid advice, like how to raise your kids.
Yeah.
So it's a really good thing. He's trying to make the world a better place.
Have you met his son?
I have. I met his son.
Impressive.
Son's impressive. His daughter's impressive. She is jacked. She is so strong.
Yeah.
It's a very impressive family.
Absolutely.
Like they're just good people.
Yeah.
But yeah, our devotional today was about some laziness, some scriptures from the Bible. Anything I'm missing on that, Randy? You want to add to that?
No, that's right. I think a lot of us go through life, tripping up on ourselves. So imagine if there was a resource where there's all these men, been there, done that, seen it. Now I've dedicated my life to helping other men.
Yeah.
It won't be till like how old are you now?
36.
36, and he's just now kind of like coming back into a realization of scripture and stuff like that, where he's starting to see, man, that's interesting. It's funny how that ties into my life. Imagine having that resource, young man, pre-marriage, or even older guy, married with kids, and now you have access to this type of resource. I think it's like it's a life-changing resource.
Yeah.
So it's just a really good thing.
Yeah.
kind of like what we were talking about today, is just, how laziness produces, nothing.
That's right.
It produces zero.
That's right.
And even if you're, one of the things that Jordan said that I really liked is, even if there's 100 doors, if you keep turning the knob, eventually one of those doors is going to be open.
Yeah.
So I really like that idea, like visualizing that. I think it should be on the next Mr. Beast games.
Well, that's another great point. I know we're trying to wrap up here, but
no timeline.
The Bible says a wise man seeks counsel. Right? Excuse me. The Bible says a wise man seeks counsel. And a lot of times men let their ego and pride get in the way of seeking counsel. And people view asking for help or asking for advice as a weakness, when in fact, it's what you're supposed to do. It's so important. Somebody wrote it down in the Bible. It's so important Jesus wrote it.
Yeah.
It's a joke. Right? I'm not sure who wrote it, but
We're gonna get all kinds of
probably Paul. If I had to guess,
checkers.
Paul wrote 2/3 of the Bible. So if I have to guess who wrote it, I'm going to say Paul.
That's going to get fact checked.
Statistically speaking, it probably was.
Man, you're going in dangerous territory.
All right.
I actually, it's a good point. I was kind of on my way back to God.
Mm-hmm.
I was already like getting back into the Word before I met you in North Carolina, but like literally being around you for those couple of weeks and just seeing how you were and how you turned your life around with God and everything, it made an impact on me. Like we said, you're one of those 1 of 5 people that you surround yourself with, and just seeing how you were, and also just talking about God and the Word and stuff like that. It helped even bring me even closer back to God. Because I was, like I said, I was already on the path of going back.
Yeah.
But you really just kind of like threw some fuel in that fire for me. So
I love it.
It's true. It's really true.
So I grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
And didn't understand any of it. It didn't help that the church was in a different school district. So all the kids I went to church with, I didn't know any of them. So in Sunday school, I felt awkward and didn't want to ask questions, didn't learn anything. And Andy Stanley talks about this. He talks about how people grow up going to church and they don't learn anything. And they leave church with a childlike understanding of faith. And then they go out into the world as an adult and they experience the world as an adult. And they experience life as an adult. And they have questions of faith that are adult-like questions, but their understanding of faith is that of a child. So they don't have the answers. So they automatically go, well, then this doesn't exist. Right? So it's easier, right? People who take the easy route, they always lose. And so they don't study the Word. They don't study religion. They don't work on their faith. They don't work on their relationship with God. And they experience life problems and they don't have an answer for them. They don't know what faith is supposed to help them with in that moment. And so they drift away from it. So, and then ultimately something happens that brings you back to it. And then, just like the advice for the young kids to be curious, then as an adult, we're curious. And we go back and we study the Bible and we learn about religion and we learn about faith and we rely on our faith. But it usually takes something significant to happen to bring you to that point.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be great if there was a group that taught men how to teach their kids to grow up in that? So I love what Jordan's doing. That's amazing.
Exactly. And like you said, if you don't have those 1 in 5 people, if I'm saying that right, if you don't have good people to be around with, wherever you are in life, wherever you are in the world, come to the Uncommon Tribe.
Right.
There's good people there.
Right.
They're there virtually, but maybe that eventually brings you to these people in person.
Right.
You don't have to be like right here in this location for it, but get yourself surrounded by good people because it is true. I even myself today, I'm still influential. I mean, like people's will influence on me how they are.
For sure.
If I'm hanging around people that just want to drink all the time, well, of course I'm going to have a drink with them because I don't want to be the one on the outside not doing it.
Right.
So it is something I've surprisingly, still even at my age and where I am, I can still be influenced by people. It was something I even noticed a couple of years ago. I can be influenced by music, like my mood.
Right.
If I'm listening to like angry music, and then I realize when I'm driving down 98, I'm mad. Like this idiot is in my way.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, what you put in is what
true.
you get out.
Same as food.
Absolutely.
Same as alcohol.
Absolutely.
Whatever you put in your body is what's exactly.
Right.
So yeah, Uncommon Tribe. It's a good thing for, and that's the cool thing. There's people in that group. There's graybeards in that group, and there's young men that aren't even 18 in that group, and everyone's on that journey together, still trying to figure it out. Even if you're a graybeard, you're still trying to figure things out, because things are going to change as you go through life.
Yeah.
So it's a really good thing. But
love it.
I think that's it. Well, brother, thank you for coming on the show. I said that was great for me. I know the audience is going to love it. Man, I love you, dude.
Love
I can't wait to spend a week with you in
Heck yeah.
Mexico next week, getting all healed up and
That's
fixed
right.
up and
That's
everything.
right.
But brother, thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And that is a wrap. Hey everyone, I wanted to thank everyone that supported John Howard Art last year. We did a little over $27,000 for charity. Every dollar from the proceeds go to charity, but I want to showcase some of the art for this commercial. We got really good prints. We got t-shirts. We got big coffee mugs. We got little coffee mugs. Even got simple things that's just like stickers. I stick these in my water bottle. Cell phone cases. I know it may seem little, but every little thing goes to charity. Like I said, last year we did over $27,000 for charity. This is my way of showing you my happiness when I'm in nature, and I appreciate the support, and we'll keep it going. Thank you. Are you looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate here in Florida? If so, please contact me directly or contact my brokerage, John Howard Realty. I have an amazing team of people. Most of them are prior veterans or spouses of veterans. Everyone is very experienced, especially when it comes to real estate investing. As many of you know, short-term rentals, Airbnbs is how I got started in real estate, and I would like to help you do the same. Thank you.